cyberpunk uncensored.
All right, so welcome everyone. I don't know how many people are watching, but we are the Forlorn Dopes, or the Tales of the Forlorn Dopes. I'm Cybersmily with my co-host.
I'm Wisdom from Datafortress2020, and it's fantastic to see you guys.
And today we have a special guest, Seth Skorkowsky. Just an FYI, Seth, even though we're on Discord, we can see each other. Wisdom is a little camera size, so basically on Twitch, I just got your little icon showing, and just some things showing for this. So welcome to the show, man. It's a privilege and an honor.
Well, thanks for having me. No, this is great.
I've been a fan for, I think, 3
We've
years.
talked about you quite a bit. It's nice to have you on the show.
Yeah.
So when I first started my YouTube channel, Cyberpunk was actually my very first game review, and it was so crude because I didn't know what I was doing yet. So then I had to go back 2 or 3 years later and do it better, with editing and images and proper audio and all, everything. So I'm thrilled. I'm actually really excited to be talking to Wisdom. So
yeah. So basically me and Derek started up this little thing to start talking about cyberpunk. We started off with basically reviewing the cyberpunk 2077, right? And we just got done with a 2-part review.
4-episode review of Cyberpunk 2077.
Four episodes. And then 2 episodes of reviewing Red. So we're kind of out of ideas right now. So that's why I figured, hey, let's reach out to one of the staples of the interwebs and get you online. Because I know I've gamed with you when you came to TotalCon. And I enjoy your site. And I know Wisdom has.
Yeah,
and I know he's worked with you in the past.
Yeah, I technically my very first RPG cred was the Datafortress2020 Drug Lab Unlimited. Because our campaign, they were street kids, and street drugs were such a thing in that campaign. We had from the Night City book, there's those 1 block or 4x4 block pages, and I took one and I added an overpass. And that was our entire campaign for a year, was that one map. And we did moving gang turfs as time passed, and using the Interlock Unlimited age rules, we actually started them off at the age of 12. And then every adventure, we fast forwarded it 6 months. So I think you would get you get your stats back because it's when you're 12, -3 to strength and all this. So every point that they would gain that stat back, they would then gain it, and then they would gain some of the IP or skill levels at that point to represent their aging. And then we go over okay, so what do the gang turfs look like? And the drug lab was essential because they ended up running a massive Breaking Bad thing with a street drug I called Jade Ice. It was a fun campaign.
So was there a Jesse involved?
You're the first person I've ever met who.
Go ahead. Finish your statement.
Yeah, was there a Jesse? Was there a
Jesse?
I was just gonna say that you're the first person who's ever told me that who's ever used the younger the age rules in the ongoing campaign.
Oh yeah, we actually ended it when they were 18.
Nice.
So we would just kind of go forward. For a while, I was doing these scream sheets that would come out like after every adventure, and there'd usually be like an article that was relating to something that happened during that adventure, and then like other articles for stuff to kind of show the world morphing, because the idea was when the campaign ended, it would be 2020, or we'd fast forward to 2050 at that point, because we're like, okay, we're getting a little too close to that time period, so we'll just push back the date of the game. And so it was like a little neighborhood. It was right outside the combat zone, and the combat zone was eking closer every year. And then there were various gangs that would then get absorbed into some of the more notorious ones. Like there was one we had, it was called the Gangsta Pranksters, and the Bozos ended up absorbing them because they had a whole clown theme going on. And another one, Maelstrom, came in and just kind of, those that they didn't take out, they just initiated into their ranks, and then Maelstrom turf started appearing. But that was a fun game. We called it our gutter punk game, and it's among my longtime players. It's kind of debated if that was the best campaign we ever had, if it was like an older like D&D one we had done years before. So it was great. You were mentioning Jesse. I was like, how did you know my player's name? Like, because yes, I did have a Jesse.
Well, you said Breaking Bad.
Sounds very similar to a gang campaign that I ran once.
Yeah, so there was
basically like a Vietnamese street gang trying to cut their turf out.
Ours was I asked them what their name was because they were. It started with they were the youngest, and they were all like 12 through 18. But I was like, the players got to name the gang and determine what their colors were and all that. So they were the Ice Scorpions, and I think their sign was something like that. I don't know, but they had their little gang sign, and blue and white were their colors. And the first couple adventures, their missions were sometimes really lame, like find the party or get into the movies. And it would be this huge adventure of them just trying to do normal stuff, and then by the end it was like full on cyberpunk. But we played for a while before any of them got their first polymer one shot, and they thought they were the biggest badass in the world because they had a gun, and it was one of those ones where the bullets were like molded inside the handle. You couldn't reload the thing. It was like this total piece of crap. And then I think for one of the interfaces there was an ad on some random page of faux cyberware, like stick-on plugs, so you looked like you had interface plugs, or like sleeves to look like it was a cyber arm. And they ended up, I think they got their first one by rolling a guy, and they were so excited to have their bogus cyber arms so they could look cool in their little stick-on plugs.
That's interesting, man.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so they were like, what, 14, 15 characters?
I love the idea of
age?
interface plugs. I love that.
What?
Sorry, I think both of us sometimes overtalk each other.
Is there a delay or something? We keep talking over each other.
There might be. I think we talk.
Yeah, I could actually hear Derek after he was done. So I don't know. It's the internet, man. It's twitchy. So
it's one of those things.
Yeah.
So these characters were basically 14, 15 years old, going into movies that they shouldn't be in, and that's an interesting campaign. Well,
what was it? There was one movie that came through, and it's basically taken the cover of a like a Shadowrun module, and I turned it into a movie poster. and it was these gangers that were in a sewer and there were vampires attacking it. So I made it this movie that came out of the studio that's in Night City of like gangers versus vampires. And I was like, okay, so what's going on is it's like when the Warriors came out in the 70s and theaters suddenly had a problem of like all these gangs showing up to watch a movie about gangs, and all of a sudden all these gang members are in a movie theater together, and you know the potential problems that could lead to. So I had that, and the one of the street drugs that I had come up with is because I wanted to have a really, really powerful hallucinogen, but due to how it works, you know, you have to like keep taking minuses on it in order to lower the price to street drug price. So it was this, we called it roulette, and it was a tablet. It took 2d6 times 10 minutes to kick in. So anywhere between 20 minutes and 2 hours, this level 5 hallucinogen would kick in, but it only lasted for like 5 minutes. But it was the most powerful thing in the world. So it was called roulette because like you took it and you didn't know when it would go off. And one of the guys actually did a deal and gave the leader of one of the other gangs some stuff at traded roulette. So they were sitting there watching the theater, and I rolled the dice, and it was, you know, it came up like a 10. So it was like, okay, 100 minutes into this 2-hour movie, right when the action crescendo happens, this gang leader has the most powerful hallucinogenic trip possible, and he freaks out, and he just starts shooting at the screen, and his whole gang joins in, and they start shooting at the screen. The whole theater erupts, and they're shooting at the screen, and these kids, and they're like 14 at the time, are like belly crawling out of the theater, and then they're bummed because they never got to see what the end of the movie was like, because like, they get out of there as like, you know, Max Tack is coming in. But then like 6 months later, during the next adventure, there was a sequel that was the studio done, and they got so much notoriety because of the incident at that theater that the studio was going to be filming it at an abandoned school that was in that neighborhood, and they were doing an open casting call. So yeah, like the other one was like they had to stand in line for hours, and there's gang fights going on as they're trying to get in to be cast as like extras or maybe some minor role in the sequel to this movie. And that was another just really fun one. But that was the type of shit we did. And then they started making darn drugs and became little crime bosses.
Yeah, I think most of my...
That's very impressive. That's beautiful.
Most of my games center around, like, you know, the corporation hiring the various teams and really doing, like, you know, extraction, assassination, and all those types of things. And I kind of played it up to really kind of getting into the whole anime of, you know, I know a lot of people are like, oh, this is overpowered. I'm like, no, it's not overpowered. Let them do it, see what happens, see what kind of action comes out of it, and then paint the scene, you know. I can remember one game in which they were supposed to be bodyguards for this exec, right? And they were following him in a van. And of course, there was an extraction happening. AV comes down, tries to capture the guy. They come out of the van. One of the players is like, you know, I have my mono katana. Okay, well, he's in the AV. They're starting to lift off. He's like, okay, I got, you know, I think it was the speeding bullets. Cyber legs. So he's like, I want to jump up, take my katana.
Those things were awesome.
Put it right into the AV door and basically rip open the door with, you know, my strength, because of course, you know, they got 10 grand in cyberware because they sold out. And just that whole scene just really played out very, it's not real life, but it's definitely action packed. And those are the scenes that I love. That always happened within my games, especially when you had people going beyond the norm.
No, and then, you know, it blows up to this just ridiculous level of power. What I always loved about Cyberpunk is you had that perfect mixture of your characters are fragile. You know, like no matter how awesome you were, a kid with a 22 pistol could still take you out.
That is the beauty of the system.
You know, it was like it had that mortality risk to it, but at the same time, if you wanted to jump out of the open door of a moving car with an Uzi in each hand, by all means, here's the rules how to do it. And when combat would break out, you know, everybody would scatter for cover, or there was, you know, the sprinting, because there was like, I'm harder to hit if I'm a moving target, and what's important to me right now is that they not be able to hit me. And so the combats were so moving, like constantly, and then, you know, which we had come from D&D, where you stand in the same spot and you swing your axe round after round until you or the bad guy drop, and then the cleric comes up, you know, pinches your butt, and all of a sudden all your hit points are back, and then you go forward like nothing had happened. Cyberpunk, it was that fragility mixed with the fact that it was the type of game where you could leap up with your massive cyber legs and ram a katana through the door of a flying, you know, ambulance.
Yep.
And it worked. It's just so fucking awesome.
Yeah, and so there was a question in the Twitch chat for you, Seth, of how you formatted your scream sheets, because you mentioned how you created your scream sheets after each adventure. Was it basically
okay?
The
well,
basic book?
Well, so you know, in the back of the EP720 book, there is the example of like the scream sheet adventures. Where it had like the little logo up in the top corner and all that. I pretty much just copied that. Like, I mean, I quite literally copied the logo and just stuck it there. And then wrote my little stories out on a single page, you know, 2-column or whatever. And I think I used Word, which Word is like the worst program in the freaking universe to use for that. Because if you move a picture like a micron, it fucks everything up. So these things are like, you know, so time intensive because I didn't have like a basic publisher program at the time to do it. I think I ended up by the end, I was just constructing them in Photoshop because I was sick of Word's being temperamental, because like you kind of see it's like, oh, I need to add a comma here, and you hit a comma and the whole page scrambles and you're like, motherfucker. So
amen to that. Jesus Christ, I have been there.
Well, isn't some of your site made from Word?
Most of my site is made from Word. Actually, most of my site, this is far more embarrassing. Most of my site is made from Netscape Composer.
Wow, that's going back.
It's yeah. I've actually got my browser right now is called SeaMonkey. It is a Netscape emulator maintained for the modern world, and yeah. So that's I am a Luddite. I am in the dark ages when it comes to doing any of this stuff. I have no idea how coding works. I just put text on a screen and then throw some images at it, and hopefully it sticks.
Yeah, I mean, my site, you know, I originally started doing that, and then I started hand coding HTML, and then tried a couple of various other utilities, and then I went to school for IT and actually learned how to do it proper. So, but yeah, it's been a long road. So, we kind of had a format, but I think we kind of get sidetracked. So I think what we wanted to do first with you, Seth, was get into what you really are, which is a novelist, right? And you've written 6 books, as well as several short stories.
I have 5 novels and then 2 short story collections. So it's like 7 books, but 2 of them are just thick collections of pulpy sword and sorcery thieves short stories. But only 5 novels.
You got the franchise going though with the whole Dameron thing.
No. Which I actually, I have a character, a little moment. I have a nod to your name in there.
Really?
Yeah, in Dameron, and then it was misspelled in the very first printing, and that's since been corrected. But in Dameron, I would do these interludes of like reports or kind of historical accounts. It'd be like a page long, and there's one that conveniently shares your last name when it's talking about the person writing the report. Because
that's beautiful.
I stole names from just about everybody I knew. So just about everybody in there shares either a first or a last name with somebody I know.
That's truly beautiful. That I like that quite a bit.
I actually got Ashes of Onyx and started reading it last week. I've gotten a third of the way, so basically when Katie gets her or goes through the ceremony to get her, blank back. I don't want to give any spoilers. However, my wife has already finished it. She's like an avid reader, so she I think reads a book a day kind of person.
If you're only there, it hasn't hit the darkness yet.
My wife has already told me
that book is dark as hell.
Yeah, so that's the one thing I liked in the beginning of. It's so those who don't know, it's a urban fantasy, right? So it kind of takes place today, but it has this element of fantasy in it. My wife said that the beginning of the book reminds her of Jim Butcher with the Dresden Files. However, you went a little
it does
different.
have the modern day and sorcerers,
which
I went a little darker than Jim. And
yes, she said that it's kind of like Jim Butcher, but without a lot of the humor. But she enjoyed it, and she liked the world you created.
Good.
Go ahead, finish
right, I think a little bit after you are, it stops being urban fantasy and it launches off into like otherworldly adventures. So the classification, if you have to genre tag it, is technically new weird because it mixes fantasy and horror and sci-fi.
Yep.
But the first third is pretty much straight urban fantasy, and then the remaining 2/3 is like something else. So you're almost there, where it's about to just be all of a sudden a totally different book.
Yeah, she told me that basically at the end they're dealing with the King in Yellow, or along those lines.
Oh yeah.
The only critique she had was that the end battle was too quick, but it reminded her definitely of a Cthulhu game.
Well,
type of ending.
It the end battle is daunting, but I've done a lot of stories where I'd have like these very long drawn out battles, and with that one, I didn't want to. Like I was like, I think it should be more like how a lot of fights are in real life. If people also had the ability to like shoot lasers and flames out of their hands, like how quick would this really be? And it's so I hope you enjoy the rest of it. It was a fun one. But if you ever get to Dameron, you might notice a familiar name hiding in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I unknowingly reciprocated with that. I had Skorkowsky Hill, part 82 of the District Amalgamated map. I named a whole area after you there.
Well, I was talking with John some months ago, and I told him about that. I was like, I saw Skorkowsky Hill. I was so excited. So
cool.
Yeah, I definitely. I don't read a lot of fantasy, but I've been meaning to read the Dameron stuff for a long time now. And that just solidifies it. I just now put in the order. They should be here in the next couple of days.
You do audiobooks. The narrator for that did a fucking fantastic job. It was up for an audio award that year for best fantasy audiobook.
Wow.
So he,
congratulations
I got to go to New
on the
York and
nomination.
wear a suit and a big gala. It was pretty good. I got beaten by The Girl with All the Gifts, which that was a fantastic book. So it was like, okay, well, I'm totally fine with that beating me because that was amazing.
If you're in that level of if you're in competition with that level of a book with that level of recognition, I mean, that says it all, really.
Yeah. So, and then, after the fourth Valdeken's book, that was when I decided, like, I want to do something totally different, and that's where Ashes came from. And it's a lot of that one's a love letter to a lot of different books and stories that really influenced me. The beginning of it, I always described it a lot like Neuromancer. But then people would say, it's like, oh, it's with the cyberpunk and the hacking. Like, no, without any of the cyberpunk or hacking, if you took the hero, Case, from Neuromancer, who is a speed freak who has lost his ability to be on the internet until somebody shows up and says, I got a job, your payment is you're going to get to be back on the internet, and you're going to do something you probably don't want to do, but my offer's too good to refuse. They'd be like, oh, yeah, that is exactly what you described. Yes.
And when I was reading it, I was like, wow, this is just reading, like, her addiction and then the whole offer of, to me was like, okay, this is definitely a nod to Neuromancer. This is, and granted, I'm sure, it changes a little different. But I definitely look forward to continue reading it. Yeah, so what's the plan?
Speaking of cyberpunk, when are you going to put out something cyberpunk, Seth?
We have started playing Red. Actually, I have started playing Red. One of my players is actually running me through it since when we were wrapping up our Traveler campaign. He had some ideas for an adventure, and I was like, "You want me to run?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, please. Yeah, by all fucking means, I would love for you to run me." And it was my buddy George. I did a video like a year ago talking about the last time he ran me, and I accidentally burned the game down around him. So he's now run us through a few adventures of Red.
I saw that video.
So I've played it. Right now that we're done with our Traveler campaign, we're doing what we call palate cleansers. We're going to do like some one-shots of Call of Cthulhu to kind of get like purge the sci-fi out, and then we're going to dive into Red. But we're all at least kind of getting familiar with the rules with this game. I'm amazed none of us have died yet, so tomorrow that might not be the case, but as of right now, none of us have died yet, which is a record for any time we've ever started a cyberpunk campaign. It's like, wow, usually somebody just gets whacked, but we're going to take it slow, but we're kind of tooling around with the rules, and I have so I've got my book, and since I started doing the channel, I do this thing when I get a new system, is the very back is like scaled with Post-it notes of what will be brought up when I do the thing. So if this is on the Twitch, evidently we don't have video. No. You can see, you guys can really see all the notes that are written in here that are, good or bad, or sometimes questions of like, maybe I'll figure this out by the time we're fluid in it. But before I ever do a video on it, I'm going to get a lot of practice. A lot of people say, it's like, oh, you read it and you do a review. It's like, I play it for a year sometimes, and then I do a review. So it'll be a long time before I actually review it. I will be doing adventures. Some of the Red adventures I'll do if we play them. And then I've also got a bunch of old CP2020 adventures that we never got to do, that I've already been looking at going like, we're going to use these for Red because I want to at least experience them. So we'll probably do, I can't remember the name of it. It was an Atlas game one where they had these chips that were like turning all the gangers into zombies. And then there was an adventure from Edge On, which was cyberspace. I'm totally going to finally get to run properly. So I'll be dropping reviews for those as I'm working my way up to an actual Cyberpunk Red review. And I'll have to do 2. I've already decided. The first one would be Cyberpunk Red just by itself, and then I'll have to do a second video called Red versus 2020, because the compare contrast shouldn't necessarily be in the same as the review, because the review should just be about the product itself. But being an old 2020 vet, I also want to do another one going, okay, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of comparing these two, because there is a completely different topic right there that somebody who's never played Cyberpunk before, it wouldn't be helpful for them. So I'm going to have like the Red review for people that might ever want to pick this game up, but they've never played 2020. They just want to know if it's what I think of it. And then there's going to be the other one that will be like, for the old timers of, like, how does it compare to this newfangled game to my old game that I will look through rose-colored glasses and be convinced was absolutely perfect in every way and didn't have some of the.
I refuse to believe otherwise. Thank you very much.
So among the things I have here is my copy of Interlock.
That's so beautiful.
We would. I worked at the university, so we would spiral bind all of our stuff, and
all professional looking.
So out of people that I've ever met that would do their little house rules, this one that I have, it's an older one, updated 2012, so I'm sure you've updated a few times since then.
I actually think that might be the most recent.
Okay, so it's 75 pages long. So don't you tell me it was perfect, Mr. Here is 75 pages of my house rules.
I've actually got changes to make even to that. So
yeah, see,
they're just sitting aside. But man. Okay. We're going to revise the statement. It may not be perfect, but it's as close as perfect to any published item I have yet to come across. So,
it's part of the, if you love it, you can adapt it. Because I'll get a lot of questions about like different games that I'll review of like, should I play this version or that version? And the answer is always, play whichever one you prefer. Play whichever one you're comfortable with. It doesn't matter. They all have things over each other because there's always that give and take. So if you want to play this version or that version, as long as you're happy, go. But
I think it's also
else actually matters.
I think it's also with game systems, right? Just try different game systems out there and just see what mechanics work with one game system versus another. And, some of them definitely don't blend with each other, but some of them do, right? With 5e, right? With the advantage versus disadvantage. Just that little system was just, to me, was mind-blowing from being a gamer since the 70s, versus dealing with or modifiers,
The advantage versus disadvantage, which like a proper grognard will be all like, well, that came from this obscure game no one's ever heard of in 1984. But when 5e adapted it, and it suddenly became like in the common knowledge. And then other games have it. 7th edition Call of Cthulhu, which came out like right at the same time. So clearly their game designers were both familiar with whatever obscure ass game came up with this years ago, and they adapted and did the same thing. It was like, well, this is just so much damned easier. The newest version of Traveler does that as well. And I do have, as was one of my criticisms of Red, is, God damn it, I would love some advantage disadvantage for some of this, because that would just make certain things a lot easier. As far as roll 2d10, take the highest to lowest, whatever side of it you're on. Let's just keep the damn game going.
Yep.
Because
amen to that.
the big thing when it comes to 2020 that ended up being the death of 1,000 cuts for us is the incredible amount of math that comes in and where we broke it. And so we took Interlock Unlimited and we turned it into a fantasy game. We played a full fantasy campaign with this, like in plate mail and swords at D&D, but with Interlock. And
I would love to see your house rules on that. I've shown me quite a few of them. I remember you telling me about when you first started doing it. But it never got followed up on.
It was fun, but man, when you look at the melee rules for 2020 and then you move that into a game where you've got plate mail that's got this much soak, but your dex is hindered so much because of that, it became this math nightmare. Also, if a sword hits you, you're probably dead because it's so lethal. If you ever see my war story over, I think it's called Have You Met Fred? And in that I talk about, we were playing a fantasy game that you've never heard of. So just imagine it like D&D that I keep going. That was actually what we were playing, was Cyberpunk 2020 in a fantasy world.
That's beautiful.
Before we continue, I just want to make sure that I don't know if...
I have to...
Let me finish wisdom. Before we continue, I just want to make sure that, a lot of our viewers, or some of our viewers, might not know what Interlock Unlimited is, right? And what it's there for, right? So, Wisdom, if you want to explain what Interlock Unlimited is, it's a good chance to promote your site in a way.
All right, I'm first. I have to get this out of the way. I appear to be like whenever I talk, I'm not interrupting you. You're not, but then my voice comes through apparently like 5 to 10 seconds later, which is why it sounds like I keep interrupting you.
No worries.
I don't know what kind of weird technical issue is causing this, but
it's called latency.
Just as an explain, I'm not trying to be rude.
Got it.
Yeah. Interlock Unlimited is a rewrite that I and several contributors did of the Cyberpunk 2020 rules, which are basic interlock. It streamlines a lot of the rules that didn't work, replaces some, and adds a bunch of new stuff to create what I was trying to go for was a universal system using the basic Cyberpunk rules. Which, as everyone who's played it knows, is a very deadly, very fast-paced system. And I might have slowed that down a little bit with some new rules, but they're all optional. So, anyway, that's what Interlock Unlimited is. And Seth was both an early playtester and he contributed. So, it's part of my meeting with Seth originally when he first got a hold of me, and I was wrong. The 2012 edition is not the most recent. It's 2014.
2014. See,
and
well, as long as it has and the other part that I was always very proud of is at least in my 2012 here, when you open it up, it says contributions by. My name is on there, so which that was another thing. When I was talking to John, just like, "How long have you been doing this?" My name's on the inside cover of Interlock Unlimited. Man, it's like, oh, okay, you've been around a while. The best change that Derek actually made to Interlock Unlimited that I thought was just so wonderful is I prefer a class or a skill-based game over a class-based game. And the difference is like, D&D, you're a wizard or you're a cleric, and then as you gain experience points, you suddenly like get more hit points, and all of these different things change, and you get proficiencies, and you can never be as proficient in this as this. Well, Cyberpunk is a skill-based game where you just choose a bunch of skills, and those go up individually, except for they always still had one class-based hangover, and that was the special ability of I can do something nobody else can do. And Derek stepped in and he removed that by allowing every skill anybody could do. It's just if that's your career package, you could get a little bonus in that, but everybody could still do anything. Which means the sky's the limit as far as what you could play. So we got weirdly experimental with it. We also did a pulp game. It was like Call of Cthulhu, but pulpier, set in the 1920s, using Interlock Unlimited, because there wasn't classes anymore, and that was a big freeing thing for us, as well as just a lot of different streamlines he did. So we used the hell out of it, man. So
we used to stat out TV characters and movie characters, and with Interlock Unlimited, that was the goal. If we couldn't stat it out, we'd actually fix it so we could. So you can really create anything out there that you've ever seen. You can create that in Interlock Unlimited, and that was important.
Yeah,
not just a close approximation, but you can do it accurately and still have freedom to play.
And
that was a big thing. And skill-based games, I love that. There's never a debate of like, how would you make Gandalf? Well, I'd make Gandalf.
Yeah,
then you're done.
And for those who don't know, IU was specifically not only for the cyberpunk genre, but also any genre that you could come up with. And I know there was other people looking into creating psionics supplements, spell supplements, and superheroes, and just taking it to kind of what I think Interlock wanted to be, that they kind of Artausorian transformed fusion, right, and came up with fusion to kind of be that generic system that could be used for everything. But I think Derek just kind of beat him to the punch a little. No offense to Mike.
Actually, Interlock Unlimited was in direct response to Fusion. I saw what they were doing with Fusion, and it worked for what they were doing, but it didn't work for what I wanted out of the system. So that's where Interlock Unlimited originally had come from. I'd had like some house rules, and eventually the house rules were something that needed to be codified and written down, and they all just got amalgamated, and I was on the View from the Edge forum, and I had new people like Seth, and basically just I got a hold of everybody I could and got their best advice on and their best home rules, and just threw it all together and created Interlock Unlimited.
Yep. So I think we're fast approaching an hour, but we basically me and Derek ramble until we
started late.
Until we run out of our own hot air. So from Cyberpunk, right? So how did you originally get into it? I mean, what was your first experience? I mean, my first experience was a friend went off to the Navy, and he came back for his first, basically vacation, and he brought one of his buddies with him who had the Cyberpunk book or the box set, right? So this is 2013. And we all rolled up characters and started playing it, and how that GM kind of ran the game was kind of, real life. Like, one of the characters had a cheating girlfriend. We kind of sold out, and it really just shocked me on how the system kind of was like real life, but not real life, and just taking it to another level that I think at the time, right, we had D&D, we had Traveler, and a bunch of other games, just taking it and kind of bringing more of a closer experience, or more of an immersive experience, because you can't understand spells and how magic works, but you can understand, oh, my girlfriend's cheating on me, oh, my boss is a dick, or corporation's trying to kill me. Well, you might not be able to understand that, but it's a little closer to reality than fighting a dragon, So how did you first get into it?
Well, 1996, So I was 18. I was actually really deep with the punk subculture at the time, and my buddy Matt, we used to hang out at a Denny's and chain smoke like you did, as
punk
required
in a
by
Denny's.
law by being 18 in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
Go figure. And so he pulled it out and handed it to me and said, "Dude, check this out." And I read it and I liked it. He ended up our local comic and game shop in like East Texas happened to also have another copy, so I bought that. But for a few years, it was only treated as a side game. I was the most D&D or Death fanboy player you've ever met. And I know you have met some seriously insufferable ones if you've been in the hobby for a while. I mean, I was first edition. If it doesn't have Gygax's name on it, it is a wannabe and it is inferior. That was me. So we would do a side game of D&D or of Cyberpunk. And then we had like kind of like a little side campaign. And it was really treated that way. Like we had several little campaigns, but then we'd always go right back to D&D until about 2007, 2008, somewhere in there. I finally broke, and I was sick of it. I was sick of D&D, so I was like, let's do Cyberpunk. I want a game where you guys are mortal, and I want a game where we don't have to deal with all this crap. And I said, let's do Cyberpunk. We'll do this as our primary game. So I went out and I'd owned a few of the books, like a couple of the Chrome books, and then like maybe one of the Solos of Fortune. And I became an eBay warrior, and I filled out the rest of their catalog of basically everything that was written, and we consumed it, and we flipped that to being our primary game. For years, and then once they got tired of that setting, and also because I ended up developing a wandering eye of different settings once I broke out of like D&D fantasy. When we started trying to do other stuff, we were all using Interlock Unlimited with it because we were so comfortable and happy with it. And then yes, whenever 5th edition came out, I got talked into running that, and I ran that for a year, and then immediately ran away. So, and that was when I caught Call of Cthulhu, and then after that we swapped systems out every couple years. So,
wow, so you even
Cyberpunk was the game I was introduced to in a long time.
Sorry, you were a late bloomer even with Call of Cthulhu.
Oh, absolutely. Let's see. I'm trying to remember the timeline. I think it was 2015 when 7th edition came out, and that's when I started playing Call of Cthulhu.
Wow.
But I dove in with both feet. So
Yeah. I mean, you went straight from like the way you talk about Call of Cthulhu. I would have figured you'd been playing since the 90s.
No, actually, recently in one of their I think one of their Facebook groups, someone was lamenting about my channel because, like, he got to start being a Call of Cthulhu GM, but I ended up just kind of popping in, and it's like, well, actually, I got my start doing like RPG philosophy videos, and the first system I ever talked about was Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
I was like, I am, I've now written scenarios for that system, but I've also written scenarios for Traveler now. So
yeah,
it's
congratulations
like,
on those acclimates.
I like to explore. Well, thank you. But it's I like to. There's certain things that I like, and a lot of what I liked about Cyberpunk is some of the same stuff I like about Call of Cthulhu, and just how the system is pure skill based and horrifically lethal if you don't play smart.
I mean, the comparisons between Cthulhu and Cyberpunk, those have been going heck since interface issue like 5 or 6, they had a whole issue dedicated to merging cyberpunk with Cthulhu.
And even
and the systems are actually very, very similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's super easy to mix them.
yeah, and Steve Jackson did his one of his supplements was Cthulhu Punk, right? In which he blended with his GURPS system, right? Combining cyberpunk and Cthulhu into one. And I've ran a few games in which I did that. One, players didn't expect it, which is always fun. When they start seeing the weird starting to encroach into their reality, and they often are like, whoa, what are you doing, Will?
I did have one friend, it was probably about 2004 we did this. He took the Night's Edge book, the vampire crossover sort of thing for Cyberpunk, because he really wanted to run me a vampire, but the problem is anytime he described vampire to me, it sounded like the most boring damn thing I'd ever heard of. But I also explained, like, I don't want to be like a vampire, man. I want to be the vampire hunter. And I want to be like Whistler from Blade, because Whistler was like the biggest badass in the Blade universe because he was just a guy. Yeah.
My favorite Chris Christopherson role.
Oh, he had the best intro of a character in cinema history was Whistler blasting open that wall of "Catch you motherfuckers at a bad time" and opens up with that machine gun. That just
Hell yes,
best fucking intro ever. So I was like, I want to have a character that's like a younger Whistler, because out of Blade is cool, except Blade's also a superhuman. Whistler is just
just a dude.
Just a dude. Like, what a fucking badass this guy's got to be. So I want to play that. I want to use Interlock. So we ended up doing a Monster Hunter campaign for a short while, doing that, where he ripped parts out of Night's Edge and ripped parts out of Vampire the Masquerade. And that was an absolute hoot, because we set it in the present day. So we took out all the cyber and just went to town. That was a fun game.
We're using Interlock
We
Unlimited.
ran a Wuxia game, but
All right, so I'll talk.
the delay is killing me.
I'm sorry, man.
I'm sorry, guys.
I don't know what to do with that. So I'll finish real quick.
Listen,
And you can
I don't know. It's just a connection issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something. I mean, watching you guys in Discord, I can see we're all synced at the same time, but I don't know if it's just a weird delay. So I'll just say real quick, Seth, we're using IU for that game, and then we can go to Derek with his Wuxia game.
For that, for the Monster Hunter, we did not use IU. That was before we found IU. So we were just taking regular Cyberpunk and mixing and matching, and that was basically our first attempt at seeing how much we could really try to like modify and break the interlock system ourselves. And I think that's, like I said, it's probably about like 4 or 5 years before I found IU. And then, it's one of those like, man, I wish I had this then, but.
Okay, Derek, now it's your turn.
Oh, yeah. So I was running on an Interlock Unlimited Wuxia game, and we were heavily into using your alchemy rules set. We had a character who was like a potion master, and that was his whole bag. And we had just watched Storm Riders, and that really served as the basis for the kind of vibe we were trying to create with this game. But your Alchemy Unlimited rules were absolutely integral to what we were doing at the time.
Good. That makes me happy. I did come across someone at some random YouTube comment one day who had also used it because they mentioned some of like the sample drugs that I come up with, like in the back of the drug lab thing by name of like, oh yeah, we used to have these. Like, aw, that's cool. Because it's like that was such a niche fandom.
Well, I mean, you were the first person to ever like submit anything out to, like their own like splat book for Interlock Unlimited, and it still holds up to this day.
It was something you needed. It was something I needed. So I figured I might as well take and share it.
We use it to a limited extent later in a caveman, like a prehistoric game I ran that turned into some weird Doctor Who time traveling nonsense. But yeah, it has been well used and well loved.
Good.
So another topic
Speaking of movies,
so after
I was just gonna ask
amazing.
Seth when it's so bad. I'm so sorry.
trust me, this is all the episodes we do this
You got
constantly.
deals in the works?
Movie deals? No.
They're coming. I would lay money that they're coming.
Hollywood just keeps forgetting my number. That would. Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, yeah, I would love that. When your first book comes out, like you get tons of questions like, who would you cast in the movie? It's like, man, if it was a movie, they could cast whoever the hell they want. I can walk into a theater, see my name up in it. So, baby, I've told my agent because when I published Ashes, I had to get an agent, and I told her, look, I've got this back catalog, and I've got this one series that's really popular. You can have full entertainment rights or whatever you want. And then I'd had a couple short stories in my Valdekin series that came out in an anthology series. So I did these little spin-off, just little short stories, and I ended up having to sign some stuff because several of the stories from those anthologies got picked up, and they got turned into several of the episodes of Love, Death, and Robots. So I know that Tim Miller has at least thumbed through those short stories. I don't know what he thought, but so there was always like when I was when they were basically telling us like, okay, they're looking at choosing some of these stories from these anthos you ran, and you've got 2 stories in these anthos. Would you be willing to accept any offers? I was like, shut up and let me sign it, and I'll see what your offers are. But evidently they went with some of the other stories.
Just a quick FYI. So, Mike Pondsmith was a teacher up in maybe Seattle, somewhere out there, right? Somewhere on the West Coast. But there's a seminar on YouTube where he talks about IP and how to deal with IP. It was very interesting to listen to him talk. So I kind of learned a lot of that whole, hey, here's my IP. Okay, do you have the digital rights? Okay, what does that mean? Okay, do you have the game digital rights? Do you have, all these crazy ways of how your IP can become, the moneymaker you want it to be, but also
and it's
the whole control and keeping control of it.
Oh yeah. And that was actually one of the big things that is really recommended for others, like get an agent, because the agents are at least capable of navigating some of that, because there are a lot of unscrupulous publishers that will basically get people to sign over a lot of that stuff. And it's not that they're planning on actually making anything out of it. It's just if they end up with a hit, they've already got it. And now the author has to deal with this publisher forever.
Yep.
That somehow got the video game rights on something, and that's a big piece of it. So then there's every language and rights and all that. So that's for people when they get in like the creative field, that becomes a crash course in learning a lot of weird legal stuff very, very quickly, and a lot of it's through horror stories. How you end up learning this is you go to conventions and you meet some like seasoned veteran at the bar. It's like, pull up a chair, kid. Let me tell you how you can get screwed a million ways. Hey.
Scud24 said,
I always imagine your life to be like some weird pulp adventure.
Scud24 says a Netflix series starring Jack the NPC. I'm definitely down for that.
Yes.
Jack came about by accident. Actually, all the characters on my channel were kind of accidental. So when I first started YouTube, back in the dark ages of 2016, you could monetize your channel immediately. Yeah, I think it was like a couple of months later they ended up changing that. But so I've got my tiny little channel, and I could see how much it made per day, and it was like 3 cents. And I ended up buying a green screen because I had an idea of a video I wanted to do in a few months. And it was like, I think we're like December, Christmas sales are coming up, yada, yada, yada. I bought a green screen and it cost me like $15. And I was thinking, it's like, okay, so if I'm making between 2 and 5 cents a day, this is going to take me a damn long time to pay off this $15 green screen. I might as well make my money, take my money out of it. And I did a video of Call of Cthulhu's The Haunting, and actually Jack was an actual NPC. I did in that to help teach my players kind of how investigative games work. And so I did that, and I put on my old suit and fedora, and I the original voice I could not maintain very long. He actually talked kind of differently in those earlier videos, and it was more of a Dr. Girlfriend sort of voice. I can't do this for like more than like a minute before like I'll start coughing.
Whiskey and cigarettes, man.
Yeah, it was my Dr. Girlfriend voice, but so I used to have so many outtakes. It'd be like, I'm almost done delivering a line, and then I'd start hacking, and I'd suck back some more. I was like, okay, one more time, and then my voice was raw, so then his voice toned down into something I could maintain. So I did that for like one video, and then I did like 2 more after that. And it's like, man, this was a lot more fun back when I used to have this other character that I could do these little stupid skits with. So I brought him back, and he just became a staple of the whole thing. But he was originally there because I had this stupid green screen that I wanted to do a gag with, and I realized it was going to take me 200 years to pay the damn thing off. I might as well use it more than once. And then the players around the table just started off as I needed one of them for just a stupid skit that I wanted to do when I talk about what we call the 13th Warrior, which is a joke that our group has been saying for years of the origins of the Michael Crichton 13th Warrior story. But that was kind of fun, so I kept that kind of the long-haired dude bro character. He didn't even have a name for like the first 2 years. And then I brought him back a few times, and then I needed a period where he talked to other people around the table. So I literally slapped together these other 2 characters, and I went to like a party city, and I think it was a Mexican bandito mustache goatee combination that I picked up for like $4. And I took the goatee and I put him on one, and I took the mustache and put him on another. I did not know that these characters would become these staples that I was going to keep for years. I just thought I was going to use them for one video, and then be done with them. And then finally enough fans would ask what their names were. I had to name them. And now, like, I have to have the clothes they wear separate from the rest of my other clothes, because the clothes they wear was just clothes out of my closets. They're now permanently reserved in a special spot of, like, this is my shirt.
To a con wearing that t-shirt, and everybody thinks you're in character. I gotta say, man, I don't watch a lot of YouTubers. I don't pay attention to a lot of podcasts. If I weren't in this podcast, I wouldn't listen to it. But I watch your stuff religiously. You're hilarious and informative, and I mean, you made me a better GM. So I want to just throw that out there.
Oh, well, that really does mean a lot. So awesome. It has been a learning curve. See, I didn't outside of the Datafortress 2020. I'd never been in any of the online communities, like, ever. And one of the early hurdles that I had to learn the hard way is kind of learning how other people play. You know, because you get kind of stuck in, this is how we play, and this is kind of how our group operates. And you kind of fall into this trap of thinking that's just how it's done. And forgetting there's like 80 other, ways out there that are all perfectly valid that just aren't like you at all. There's all these different tastes or situations, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why, like, I think last year I ended up kind of going back and removing some of my early stuff because I worded it really shittily, because it was like they were not as helpful. I think I really came off like an asshole in them, but they were super popular. And then one day I realized, like, the only reason these are still here is because they're popular. But I actually hate these videos. Like, I'd get comments on them, and I'd be like, "Oh, son of a bitch! Somebody's talking that thing. I wish you would go away." And I was like, one day I was like, "I can make this go away," and I just removed them, like, because I didn't like the idea of. When you first start doing a channel or getting out in media, it actually takes a while to learn your own voice. Like, when you put a camera or a microphone at somebody, we all naturally start emulating something that isn't the same as what we really are if we're just sitting around bullshitting.
Yep.
And sometimes you have to actually learn how to be yourself. And that's weirdly difficult. And it's so alien to have to, like, explain to somebody who's like, yeah, you have to at some point chisel away whatever persona just suddenly starts appearing, and how you're presenting yourself in order to find the real you. So yeah, my early stuff was very kind of more dickish, and that's why it's gone. I've gotten so many complaints over that. It's like, yeah, I'm fine with it. But because the more I've talked to the community, the more I can see all the great ways of playing or different viewpoints on it that are all valid, but some are more valid than others. There are some out there that are, like, really dumb, but there's a lot more valid ones than I'd originally considered.
Yeah, and I think
I was pretty shocked when you redid that first video, and I was like, I remember hearing that you were going to redo it, and then like, oh, he's going to leave. He's just going to talk about Cyberpunk, and then you basically went through that same promotion for Interlock Unlimited you did the first time. I don't know if dudes can squee, but I squeed a little bit.
What is it? It was massively influential and massively helpful for us. So of course I'm going to talk about it.
Man, that means so much.
Yeah,
I remember when the video game, before it was announced, when Datafortress 2020 crashed, and none of us knew why, and then you were like, okay, I found out why it crashed. Like, why? Is it they're making a video game, and Pondsmith sent them to my site to learn what the world is like.
Yeah,
what? And then it was like 2 years later,
happened.
the first trailer came out, and everyone's all excited. It's like, yeah, it's old news. I knew about that back.
Yeah, he got to me like a week after it crashed. He's all like, it's kind of my fault. And I was like, well, that's There are worse reasons for my site to crash.
Yeah, I
that
think
that works. I'm never
Smith
upset
crashing
about
your
it.
cyberpunk site is the best reason you could.
Yeah. Telling the video game developers like, hey, go check out this site if you want to know what the game is really all about. That is probably my personal crowning achievement.
It would be mine too. That was one thing I did love about 2077 was getting to see Night City. That was actually one of my favorite aspects of the game, was finally getting to see it. Versus the static black and white art or the occasional color picture, but to actually like drive down the street and just
to be a tourist in Night City. You can do that.
That to me was like such a perk. And actually some of my players the same way. I was like, dude, you just get to walk down the street, like I'm finally there. So
there's some males from over there beating the shit out of some guy. It's fucking awesome.
So we were actually going to ask you about, if you've played the game and, what's your opinion of it. I don't know if you're going to do a video on your site, because I know you're mostly tabletop games. But from a computer game system, for Cyberpunk and being a Cyberpunk player, you got any reviews or tips you want to share, or you going to save that for your own site?
No, I'm not going to do a video review for it. It's one of those to kind of step into the realm of video game reviews. Really requires a technical aspect that I don't have, and a lot of just different ways. Because I don't play that many video games. Once I started actually writing seriously, there were some hobbies that had to get trimmed, and that was one of the big ones. So the past few years, I've only played a few video games just because of time. So when 2077 came out, I'd even talked about in like a live Q&A. It's like, I'm going to wait several months before I pick it up, because there is always bugs. That's a rule of video games, is there's always bugs, and I don't want to play a game that's got some bugs. So I'm going to wait a few months. And then lo and behold, 2 months later, yada, 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 everybody heard about that. So in April, I think my birthday is April 5th, so I picked up 2077 finally. And that was my month of slamming through 2077. And I played the hell out of it. I loved it. Just absolutely loved it. But I waited until all the patches had been done. And it was PC, which evidently PC was the one that worked better anyway. So I did it. I did the Street Rat version, and played it through. I think there was like, I think by the time you have to have that moment where you have to commit, and it's like, if you keep going at this point, all of the little submissions go away. There were like 3 or 4 of those little blue icons on the map of like, there's a side job or something here left.
Yeah.
At this, I get that because I had gone through all of them. Just, that was all I did, was those. And I think by the time I finally walked in the door and it gave me that, it's like, yeah, I'm done. I've done all of these little side quests. There's like one, it's 5 miles away. There's not even a bus stop near it, because you take the bus stop to like shoot there faster, because you don't want to like spend so long trying to get there. And it's like 4 gangers, and you kill them in like a second. You're like, oh, cool, a little bit more money that I don't really use because I'm just so loaded. Now let me get all the way back to the city. So yeah, I played it. I loved it. I did I enjoyed a lot of the flashbacks, because I loved it when you got to see 2020 Night City, when Silverhand's flashbacks happen. But it was fun. I loved the hell out of it. I think a lot of the people that were very critical of it outside of the glitch issue, we're going to always find something to complain about.
Yeah.
Glitch issue, I don't blame them for complaining, though the people that will always find a reason to complain, that to them was just like cocaine, because they were so happy to have something to complain about. But
you get like an endorphin rush complaining about and whining about the littlest things. Like they base their whole identity around that, really.
And you're always going to find those people. But with the actual issues that it had, I don't blame anybody. But I also had known up front, I was like, you don't ever buy a video game when it releases. But there's kind of this weird competition of who's the first that can end the game, and it's like, and they're like, yeah, I beat that game in the course of a weekend. It's like, if you were capable of beating that game in the course of a weekend, you didn't actually play the game. You did the absolute minimum to reach the ending scene, but you didn't actually play it, because most of that game is going about and exploring and doing 5 billion side quests. But like, I enjoyed meeting the Voodoo Boys. I thought that shit was awesome.
Yeah.
Because I knew so much of the lore. I knew so much of all that stuff. And like, you get to see them. You go into a warehouse and you talk to the Maelstrom gangers. It's like, fuck yeah. Or you go into that damn bar and you meet Rogue, and that shit was awesome.
That shit was truly awesome.
Getting to meet Rogue, because those were all the NPCs from the old game, and it's like, that's what Rogue sounds like. Yep. That's it's like, it was really cool. Johnny was a bigger asshole than I had envisioned him.
He was about the right level of asshole from what I had envisioned him. I gotta say.
I hadn't quite pictured him just that insufferable asshole, but he worked.
But even like with the afterlife,
it's probably more accurate.
And how the afterlife, in the books talked about, oh, this is an old morgue, right? So yeah, you kind of get a picture of it, but going into the bar and seeing, the body drawers pulled out as tables and having stools next to them, to me was just one of the great little aspects.
Reference.
Well, when the original... go on.
I think we're going to be finding references in that game to the paper, to the tabletop version. I think we're going to be finding references of that for years to come. Oh, yeah.
You'd have to. There's so many tiny little details that were hidden in there. So there's this, it's actually best in audiobook. It's got the same narrator that I used for my Valdigan series, but there's a book series called Expeditionary Force. It is an amazingly hilarious military sci-fi space opera. And in it is this AI named Skippy. And when one of my players is like, dude, Skippy's in the fucking game. I'm like, what? He's like, Skippy, Expeditionary Force, Skippy's in the fucking game. I'm like, no way. So he's like, you'll find him, don't worry. So yeah, when you find the gun Skippy, that is an absolute reference to that book series. So I enjoyed the fact they actually have a lot of little references to not just the pen and paper game, but to a lot of stuff that you either know it or you don't, and you could enjoy it if you don't, and if you do know it, you enjoy it in a completely different way.
For Skippy, my connection with Skippy was words Clippy, right? With the little tapping on the screen telling you that. Mm-hmm. That's where I assumed he came from. But, I'm sure Clippy has influenced quite other people as well.
12 of those things.
Skippy in Expeditionary Force is an alien AI that looks like a beer can, and he makes a holographic version of himself, and all he does is insult you.
Nice.
It's like the greatest thing ever.
The gun, where it's like, it pops up, you're like, what? He's like, and he says it louder, and you're like, what? He says it louder. He's like, well, I can hear you. I was like, oh, you're stupid. Let me talk slower. That is exactly how that character in that AI is. It's like,
What was it called?
The gun and the soda, the two AIs you come across in that game are like some of my favorite parts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the vending machine, Brendan.
So. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Such a sad one.
Or not.
Or not. But I really enjoyed I enjoyed that it got to kind of show certain aspects of it. Like cyberpsychosis is always one of the hard parts to try to explain to people that aren't used to it. So I liked the way it did the cyberpsychosis. Man, I really fucking hated that mission of you've got to like knock out 17 cyber psychos. That shit took forever.
I love that. Mostly because each of the individual stories were so bloody tragic. Like half of them, I didn't want to kill them, but then they end up killing some like innocent civilian. I'm like, yeah, you probably got to go.
Well, I mean, because like there was the one you had to like get 17 alive. Wasn't that what it was? It was some.
Yeah, like, they want you to take them alive.
And so you fight them, and if you accidentally kill them, it's like son of a bitch, and I'd start over. So I pulled that one off, but yeah, I was like, oh, it didn't have to be 10. No, it didn't have to be a dozen. No, it didn't have to be 50. It's 17. You son of a bitch! Like just 17. Sick of this. So.
And when they're just human, it's not a big deal. But then you've got like 3 or 4 of them that are running around in like giant mech suits, and you're just like, "What? You want me to go punch that thing?
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to do that."
Oh, the worst thing about that quest
was fun.
And granted, they fixed it after I forget which patch it was. I think it's 1.2, right? So the original game, because I got it as soon as it came out, because, you know, as soon as I saw the 2013 trailer, I was like, okay, I'm not going to upgrade my PC until this game comes out, right before it comes out, so I can save a crap load of money and get the best machine, you know, to run this thing. Luckily, you know, there was bugs, but there wasn't like the majority of bugs that I think other people have had. But granted, you know, I'm blessed and don't feel bad for me because I spent the money to get a machine that runs it. But yeah, like in the beginning, and you probably saw it afterwards, you didn't get a reward after you finished that 17. It was, okay, thanks, appreciate it. And, you know, a little bit of dialogue. So what did you learn? Oh, we learned a little bit. Okay. It's like, okay. And then the patch allowed you to get, what, two pieces of legendary goods. I was like, God damn, I killed 17 of them and you only give me a thanks?
Yeah, here's a high five. Good job.
Of course, in the Cyberpunk 2020 game, you know, you'd be pulling out your pistol and saying, where's the money?
Oh, yeah. Well, in that one, though, there would be a lot more, you know, since you can't save it beforehand, it would be a much bloodier mission trying to get 17 live ones, because those guys are horrible. The ones in the mech suits was just like, you know, as you get higher and higher level, it's like, oh yeah, I got this. And I'd usually hit them once with the sniper rifle, and then like if they're still standing, I could, you know, whip out a dildo and knock them unconscious. But otherwise, you just not hit them once and they're down.
It's on so scary when they don't have arms or legs anymore.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to kind of...
That's the beauty of it.
Congratulate Seth is you're what, 12,000 people away, or 12,000 subscription away from the 100K on your YouTube?
Yeah, I'm like at 87 something, because I know I'm getting close to 88, because I want to do the Doc Brown meme of, you know, instead of 88 miles an hour, I want to have my 88,000 subscribers. So I know I'm getting close to finally being able to drop that.
Nice.
That meme announcement. I remember when I first started, and you know, you always look around at your your peers. You automatically rule out the big ones because you should never compare yourself to like that. You always want to compare yourself to people that are kind of like the next league up. And I remember seeing, channels that had like 2,000 subscribers, and that was so unimaginable to me that they had 2,000 people. My God. One day I hope to have that many people. And I did that channel for almost 9 months before one day it just exploded. And I was actually about to call it in because I'd been working on it, nonstop for 9 months. It really wasn't going anywhere. And I was like, I'm going to give this a couple more weeks, but if this doesn't pick up, it's just become a time sink. And then just one day, one of the videos, one of the ones I later removed because I actually didn't like that video, exploded in popularity. And it kind of
stop doing that.
Pushed it forward enough that I could keep going. But now it's like, kind of doing the truck and getting closer to 100. I really hate the term influencer. I hate it when people call me an influencer.
Oh my God.
I prefer internet personality if I'm allowed to like call myself something. But the main thing I can use if they're like, no, you're an influencer, and they try to argue the point is like, you can never call yourself an influencer till you hit 100. So I'm about to lose that excuse, hopefully, but I'll still argue. It's like, I'm not an influencer. I don't help people with their fashion or their music taste or how to put on makeup or how to dress or any of that.
You're not trying to convince anybody to buy anything.
No. And,
but you are,
it's a weird one. I have been like kind of,
you are an
review
influencer,
and I'll talk about what I like.
Because you're giving game tips, right? This is how you deal with troubled players. This is how you deal with GM things, right? And that influences a GM or a player.
That's an advisor, though. Like, I'm with him.
I'm a personality. I don't know. Just the influencer always makes me think of,
whiny socialite.
Yeah, there's
Karens.
there's a thing to it. There's a negative connotation that I like, but the other one is I don't really see myself in any way as like a trend setter. Influencers to me are trend setters, and it's like, I'm talking about geeky games, and it's all about fun time, imagination land. And I'll slap on a fake mustache and I'll put on a black and white filter to make it even harder to tell that it's really just me with the cheapest damn mustache in the world stuck on my face. And I'll talk with a stupid voice.
Well,
if I've got to describe you, it's as a geeky guru because you throw out wisdom.
and I know the three of us are somewhat grognards, right? And back in the day, geek was not something to be, was not always something you wanted to publicize. But nowadays, the geek culture is becoming the pop culture, So we are, or at least some people are becoming
really
more
cool.
influencer.
It's really, I actually got into an odd back and forth on online, I guess like a week ago, and I was explaining that how one of the big benefits of 5th edition D&D is it's an approachable game. It's the king of the RPGs. It's the gateway drug for most people that are in the hobby. Most of us started with some edition or version of D&D, and I was talking about the fact that it has brought a lot of people to this hobby, and then once they get into the hobby, that's how they start exploring all the other games that are out there and all the different ways that you can do it. So I don't care if they got into it because they watched Critical Role or Stranger Things or whatever, and they start that awesome. I'm happy they're here. Welcome aboard. because you being a customer in this hobby allows my favorite comic and game shop that I've been going to for 20 years to stay in business. It allows for the fact that there's some really cool accessories out there that we couldn't have imagined 10 years ago. But now there's a big enough market that somebody can afford to make badass gaming tables and dice towers and cool ass shit, because now we've got this many more people in the hobby. But then they start looking around at what else is out there, and that is how a lot of the other games they've been having record years, because they're getting the spillover of people that were introduced to it through D&D. And basically, as I was coming to its defense, because some people were talking crap about it, and I'm like, look, it's not my game, but you got to admit, everyone has benefited from the popularity of it. And it's approachable. It's brought a lot more people. It's brought a much more diverse group of people. And now they're finding Cyberpunk. They're finding Traveler, Call of Cthulhu, and all the other stuff that I play. They're here. Welcome aboard. Find the game you want and have fun. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So 2 comments.
I mean, Dungeons and Dragons popularity has only ever been positive for the industry, for the community as a whole.
It was a little dark period in the 80s, but what's funny is
that wasn't Dungeons and Dragons' fault. That was some
fucked up shit.
That was some fucked up shit. Jesus, why would you remind me of that?
Man, whenever I sit here and I do these things, I wish I had like stretchy arms so I could go across the room and like grab something and show you. So I have a copy of the Devil's Web by Patricia Pulling.
Oh my God.
Which has one of the greatest covers. I love its cover. It's like, mother of God, I would love to have this on as a cover of one of my books, because it has got the most sinister little evil girl on the cover. Anyway, so if you ever get a chance to pick that book up, if you flip it open, the publisher is out of Tyler, Texas. That's where I grew up, man. I was in like fucking
find it in Christian bookstores everywhere
of the Bible Belt doing that. So during the 80s, I truly thought that D&D was illegal. Like, it was this thing, and people went insane, and they killed their parents and ate babies or some shit, and it was outlawed. So when I was in middle school, and your homeroom in like 7th grade or something, and there was sometimes these little magazines that they would give to kids in middle schools, which is mostly they're just to market shit to them. And there was an ad for Dungeons and Dragons, and it had on the top, "It's back." And it was for whatever the new box set was. And I remember rushing to my friend Aaron, being like, "Dude, it's not illegal anymore. Like, we could finally see what this was about." So we actually first got into the hobby because it was that young curiosity of like, I heard this shit drives you insane. I got to know what the fuck this is about. So, and then we found out it was about like hobbits and elves and shit, and it was like, oh, we love this shit too.
This isn't how you summon Satan. This is just a bunch of nerds sitting around a table.
And it was like, oh, well, this is right up our alley anyway. But like, we wanted to know, because all we knew about it is like the devil would get you. Well, I got to know what the fuck this is about.
Oh yeah, I got to see that.
Yeah, actually,
if you ever get a chance,
go ahead.
If you ever get a chance, there's a series of books. You want me?
Series of books. Go for it, and then I'll go.
There's a series of. It's called Designers and Dragons by Shannon Appelkline. I'm an audiobook addict. The first 2 are out on audio, but the first book is the 70s. The second book is the 80s. And it goes over all the companies that were founded in those decades, all the way through the end of them in the tabletop industry. The second book...
that's gotta be interesting.
Is the foreword to the second book's by Mike Pondsmith. So he wrote that. And then R.L. Sorian appears in that book because they were founded in the 80s, and it follows R.L. Sorian through the end. Derry, if you saw it, like I think Facebook, I took a picture of where they quote Datafortress2020 on the Artelsorian portion of that book. Like there's,
I saw that when you sent that to me. I was like, "Holy crap, that's awesome!"
because
I didn't realize that's what it was from.
yeah, so I picked it up on audio because I listen to audiobooks and I do like stuff around the house and shit, but I knew these were books that I was going to reference a lot. So then I picked up physical copies. That's another book that I wish I had super stretchy arms to like reach up and grab from where I'm sitting. But yeah, so like in it talks about Interlock Unlimited in the Artelsoria thing, and they actually have a quote from Derek in it. So I opened up my physical copy, I took a picture of it, and I sent it to him on Facebook going, dude, you're in this book. But yeah, so Pondsmith did the introduction for that, and it talks about what the industry was like then during that first golden age. And it is fascinating if you want some of the history on the industry. So I really do recommend it to people. But you have to be like a serious level of nerd to read the history of the gaming industry and find it fascinating, which I did. But it's not something that I would be able to like, it's edge of your seat. No, you've just got to be like at a certain level of geek to be able to like, this is amazing.
There's 4 of these things now.
Well, he's
So
got
I
one
want you
for
to know.
every decade.
Yeah, you are now responsible. I like 7 books now that I've ordered while we've spoken. I don't have this kind of money, man.
I'll donate to your
Can't
cause,
wait
man.
till these get here.
But yeah, so like for me, I started gaming in 1978 at the ripe old age of 8, even before the recommended age of Dungeons and Dragons, which I think was 11 at the time. Just because I remember walking to the hobby shop, I don't know why my mom brought us there, and I just saw the monster manual on the shelf, and of course up here and where I live, they had on every Saturday they had the thing called Creature Double Feature, right, which showed these the 1950s monster movies and like horror movies. So it wasn't scary, but it was kind of scary for an 8-year-old kid, 6-year-old kid actually, even younger when I first started it. And I was like, oh, I love monsters, I love dinosaurs and all that other stuff. And I saw that book and I'm like, what is that? Whatever that is, I'm into. Give me it, give me it, give me it. And my mom bought me the blue set that Christmas, and that's when my whole gaming career started. And went from D&D, Traveler, and kind of ran a gambit through a lot of different games. And then the whole D20 craze, that's when it kind of like dropped out because real life, I started becoming an adult at that time, so I was like, okay, gotta get a job dealing with all that other stuff. But yeah, and I lived through the Satanic Panic. I actually had to move down with my aunt and uncle, and they were very religious, so they lived in Florida versus the Northwest or Northeast. And yeah, when I brought my D&D books there, my aunt did not appreciate that. So turned into an interesting time for my life. But once I got out of there and moved back, my gaming career continued on. But yeah, it definitely was an interesting time for game in general, for that time, and then how it grew over the decades. We're almost at a half century of role-playing games.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's. I was gonna say I spent the Satanic Panic in Mississippi and Oklahoma. So, yeah, we're talking deep behind the bowels of enemy territory. I say behind because it seemed like shit just kept piling up.
I remember when we first got into it. I was. Basically, all my friends and I, we hooked up with the dungeon master. It was all through our scout trip, but so we all started playing, and at that time, 2 movies about it. Like Lifetime TV movies came out
Monsters and Mazes.
I remember one of them. Oh, that was well
Mazes and
before.
Monsters. Tom Hanks.
Yeah, the old Tom Hanks one was before, and I finally found covers on it because one day I want to do a video on this. But on that one, it was like these guys, they kill their parents, and I remember they took the map of the dungeon and they cut eye holes in it. And when the guy actually murdered his parents, he was wearing the D&D map on his face. And
Wow.
they're reading the rules to each other, and one of the rules they're quoting is about how, like, if you once you hit the bad guy, you kill them or the monster or whatever, and then if you keep hitting him after death, you still get more experience points. And they were using that to explain why the parents were killed so brutally that even after they were dead, they just kept stabbing them over and over again. And it's because they wanted more experience points. So one of my friend's moms called my mom, and we had to watch this together. And so my buddy and I afterwards are talking shit about this because we're like, that's not a rule. And like they opened up the book, and I remember they were showing like a picture, and it's like, that picture is not in that book. Like, they actually took a picture from a D&D book and then they put it inside of the wrong book. Like it's like, that's from the Fiend Folio, but they're opening up the Dungeon Master's Guide. And as it was like, and then like another one came out like shortly after that, and it had to deal with the damn steam tunnel thing. And that was like 91 when that happened. It was like just back to back, two of these damn movies, and they're both based off the same story of that detective that basically started the whole problem. And
the one who toured the country doing talk shows with Pulling.
Yeah, and I cannot remember the name of the kid. He went missing from the university. I thought he was down the steam tunnels. They notified TSR because they found the map on the wall. And they basically were like, we don't know where this kid is. Do you guys, like, we don't know what this shit is on the wall. Like, do you know what this is? And Gygax and company are like, oh God, this is horrible. We'll try to see if we can figure this out to help you. And then they found the guy like ran away. He was down in Louisiana.
Yep.
He had a lot of mental issues. He was gay.
Yeah, I mean,
he was also like a kid genius. So he was like in college at the age of 16.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that's got to be weird.
None of his issues had anything to do with Dungeons and Dragons at all. But somehow it got blamed on Dungeons and Dragons.
And this detective is like, it was D&D, and he wrote a book blaming D&D. And because he loved the fact that, you know, he could like tell people, did you know there's a game that will drive you insane? And everyone's like, well,
I made a career off of that.
And
like, he was. I remember seeing him on. He was on like Donahue, and then he was on Springer, and then he was on like Good Morning America talking about this shit. I'm just like, Jesus Christ. Meanwhile, my grandparents are worried about Satanists out in their fields, like killing their cows. I'm like, that's never going to happen, Mom.
Well, at the 80s, when I'm like, 7 and 8 years old during all that, oh yeah, there's Satanists out in the field. And it's a few years before.
In the woods, that's where they sacrifice the kids.
They weren't Satanists. They were a bunch of teenagers like smoking dope and screwing. That was
that's what it all was. But somehow that's Satanism.
Yeah, and the kids killing their parents. Oh yeah, it has nothing to do with the parents beating the crap out of the kid. It's everything to do with the game they're playing.
Yeah, like we're like the Menendez people. It's like it wasn't D&D. It was the fact they wanted their parents' money. They were evil little bastards.
Yep.
Yeah.
They were just naturally evil. But so the Devil's Web. I actually at a convention, I did this panel talking about like the history of D&D. Which I thought it was weird that I was brought in on it. It was like, okay, I used to play first and second edition. I ended up reading the definition of D&D from their, like, they have a little dictionary in the back of occult terminology, and one of them is Dungeons and Dragons, which is really close to Druid and Ectoplasm in their thing, D&D has the most batshit definition. It is like this huge paragraph how it teaches like witchcraft, cannibalism, bestiality, homosexuality, just like matricide, patricide. It just lists every unimaginable, horrible thing in the world as this is a game about that. And so I remember I sat there, was like, let me read to everybody the definition of Dungeons and Dragons. It's like, I hope you have a minute, because this is going to take me a long time to read, because it's like huge. But it's funny is when you do it, you can see people's like kind of giggling, and then like their jaws just get lower and lower. It's like he's still going, it's getting more and more out there as far as just this madness. And it was because Pat Pulling's son had committed suicide, and her way of coping was she had to find something to blame, and that was it. And she had,
and then she monetized that blame, and
she did. And then there was bothered about Dungeons and Dragons for a while. I thought about seeing if I could have those made. Somebody else already has, evidently, but it was like, but I wanted to have those. It was like Mad shirts, pointed out like bad with bothered about Dungeons and Dragons at it. And then I found out that if you go to Jack Chick's website, you can buy copies of Dark Dungeons for like 100 for $15. And I was like, yeah, holy shit! Like, I should go to a con wearing a bad shirt and just start handing those to people.
Oh, that would be brilliant.
But then I was like, and then I'd get my ass beat behind a dumpster, and I would 100% deserve that. So I chickened out. Because I thought it would be fun if I was up on a panel talking about gaming, and they brought me in as a guest, and then I handed those to people. Like, I just want to see the confusion on their faces. Like, yeah, somebody wouldn't know that I was joking, and I would totally deserve what happened to me. I wouldn't even be able to blame them for kicking my teeth out. So I'm just going to choose not to do that.
Yeah, go on the safe side of that. Although, I mean, really, the people you're going to be offending are going to be other nerds. So it's 50-50.
Have you guys...
Look, man, nerd rage is real.
Nerd rage.
Have you guys seen the guys who did... Christ. There's like a parody movie about gaming. Dorks.
Dark Dungeons movie?
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, this
Dark Dungeons. I've seen Dark Dungeons.
Zombie
amazing.
Society.
It is the most brilliant fucking movie ever. I haven't seen this.
No, the troupe is called like Dead Zombie Society or something like that, and they did the Chick's novel to a T, like played it out with actors and
like the Dark Dungeons movie.
Yes,
it's brilliant.
It's funny is I had some guy on a comment on one of my videos who talked about that, and evidently they thought it was serious. Like it had to have been the most humorless human being on earth to have believed that the movie was serious, because I actually like using screenshots from that movie in some of my videos of the players sitting around the table. Because like when the first game and like this whole audience is there, and that dude is up there, is like, do you want an RPG? And everybody in the ice is like, RPG! It's like, it was just amazing. So when we first saw that movie, a buddy of mine bought it.
That's it.
And we called this massive bad movie night to my house. So we had a bunch of our friends watching it. And I remember we were about 20 minutes in, and like my buddy Steve pulls up his phone and he's like, I now own this. It will be delivered in 2 days. And by the end of the movie, several of us had bought it. It's like, I would like to give these people my money. This must be in my movie collection, because it is so perfect.
Yeah, production company.
That comic, they did it beautifully. I love it.
The production company was called Zombie Orpheus Entertainment. That's what I was thinking of. But yeah, when I saw it, and to me, they did
Gamers, didn't they?
Yeah, they did the Gamers. They've done several other Gamers, and I think some other movies. But yeah, that movie was like, the way they portrayed it as, it seemed like I don't think some people realized it was satire because of how the acting was like really into it and trying to portray, oh yes, this is an evil thing with role-play games. And I was like, I was watching it laughing, and then I like took one step back and okay, if the wrong people watch this.
I think if you don't know what they were doing, you might think they were serious, because what I thought the comedy was brilliant is how damn straight-faced they did that. I think if they had tried to tongue-in-cheek that and make it comedic, it would have fallen flat.
It wouldn't have.
But they were like, okay, everybody, we're going to do this shit dead serious. And that is the humor. It was so great. I love when like the cool kids are going down the hall and say, oh, those are the RPGers. And they're like, who's that? It's like, this statement has never been said about a group of gamers walking through a hallway in the state of the world.
I remember those days. I was thrown into lockers and locked in them.
Yeah, they were all portrayed as the cool bad
Still got the scars.
So we've been talking for almost 2 hours. I don't know if you want to continue chatting, bullshitting, or if you got places to go, either of you.
I'm enjoying this, man.
Well,
No, I spent my my tokens before I got here getting late, so I'm here to go.
I've waited 10 years to talk to Derek. God damn it.
Fuck yeah. This has been a long time coming, and I'm gonna enjoy every moment of it, even if that moment is like 10 seconds lagging behind. It's gonna happen.
There actually is a convention up in Arkansas that I was supposed to do last year. SpaCon. Have you ever been to this thing?
I've never even heard of it.
It is
In Little Rock or something?
No, it is in Hot Springs. And I actually have some friends up there, and they trying to get me in touch with them.
It's called SpaCon.
Yeah. I think Lori Petty is their guest of honor this year. She was last year, but last year got canceled for, reasons. And they had like the Huddle's Pity Party was going to be one of their guests last year. I don't know if they're going back.
Yeah, this sounds awesome.
It's actually like,
damn it.
It's like
Something else I have to look up now.
More money, more money.
They reached out to me this year, and they're like, dude, the longer you talk to me, the more money I'm going to cost you. So
Jesus Christ.
So I signed up to be one of their guests last year, and it was all good. Then got canceled for COVID. And they reached out to me this year, but one of the things they wanted to offer was like a table in the convention center, to sell books and whatnot. But I was like, I don't want a table, because then I have to have it manned. And it's like, so which means if I go do a panel or I go do something, now I have to have somebody cover the table while I'm gone. And if I'm not doing a panel or something, I'm stapled to the floor behind this table. It's like, guys, I don't need that. Like, I'll come to just remove that. No big deal. I'm not asking you to replace it with anything. Just I don't need it.
Sounds like you need to get more
people.
Are you
sure? Like, yeah, I don't need it. And then I never heard from them again. And like, I was like, hey guys, like,
still wanted to be the guest. I just didn't want a table.
You guys not love me. So hopefully, like I said, I guess friends that are there that are actually like involved. So like, what part of the show was like, guys, like it went radio silent, and all I said was I don't need a table. So, and part of it was like I thought it'd be fun, and then like the more I thought about it, because it's like, well, I'd have to go up there with my wife, and then one of us would have to be stuck by the table or stuff like that. It's like that's a stress I just don't want. Even though I've gone to conventions and I had a friend that had a table, and I would spend half the time just working my buddy's table, just because. But
yeah,
that was when I was the buddy helping. To be the one that needs the help is like, man, that's a lot of stress. And you know, I don't know. I don't know. Now I'm like, I regret, like, well, do you still want me? But SpaCon, like they got some cool guests coming. So I remember
they've got Michael Bolton and Rags Morales coming.
Yeah, so definitely check that one out.
That's some serious like guestage right there. Plus, of course, Lori Petty, and I don't know if it'd be a good idea to have me in a room with Lori Petty. I've been in love with her since the 90s.
Well, I tell you, my friend Angie, who's one of my friends up there, you will not. She'll be there first. She's like Tank Girl has been her like icon for so long that when they announced Lori Petty, like she pretty much just like immediately called Squeal and like, oh my god, it's a dream come true. You know, like I want to do this. Like, yeah, don't worry, man. I think she wins as far as like people that like are gonna fanboy for fangirl to the max. So
speaking of conventions,
well, there was like this one convention.
How did you get, or why did you come up to New England to go to Total Confusion? I mean, that's where we first met face to face. When I saw you, I was like, wow.
Well, they reached out to me, and they're like, "Do you want to be our guest?" I was like, "Absolutely." So when my first novel came out, and that was 2014, is when I started doing like conventions as a guest or a personality. And normally, how it works is I have to contact them and be like, hi, I have a book and I would like to do this. You know, it is just awkward. You feel like you're a middle schooler at a sock hop asking a girl to dance with you. It is just awkward and terrifying to throw yourself out like that. And I've just gotten used to it, but I've done that for years now. And then all of a sudden, this con up in Massachusetts reaches out to me and they're like, hi, do you want to be a guest? I was like, oh my god, yes. It's like suddenly like you're asking me out. Absolutely. So they reached out and I went. I loved it. 2020 was supposed to be my year of cons. I was going to do a lot at most of the out-of-state cons, and then I did that one.
You're going to go on the circuit, huh?
And that was it. That was the year I was going to be doing the circuit a lot. I got Total Con, and that was the end of the story. Because I even remember when I was there was echoes of some sort of like horrible sickness going on in like China, and like I heard it's beginning to hit Italy. It's like, oh, that's concerning. Okay.
At that time, New York was starting to explode. And, you know, when we first...
Was it already then?
Yeah. So New York was starting to really get bad, or at least starting, right? Because, like, after I came back from that con, a week after I got back from the con, my work was like, everyone needs to go home. Don't come back to the office until we tell you to.
And so I was going to do... that one. I had another one lined up in March. I had a couple over the summer. Then I was going to do Gen Con and SpaCon in the fall, and then a couple other Texas ones. And that was it. And now a lot of those cons aren't even like they're skipping years. So like the one in Oklahoma that I love, SoonerCon, didn't happen last year. Didn't happen this year, just because there wasn't time from when they would have to get the convention center set up to when we knew if we were going to have vaccines yet. I think they had to commit by like January. And I was like, there's enough time for them to know. So like they're struggling.
And we all know
to
that
see if they can even open next year.
Conventions are the epitome of healthy living.
You don't, no matter how healthy you are before you go into a convention, you're coming out with the convention funk, baby.
Oh yeah. And I Well, I grew up doing Renaissance fairs. Like that was my big hobby for years, and that's what I used to do in college because, you wanted to go to a Renaissance fair, but you're broke. So if you want to go, you have to work it. So my wife and I worked Ren fairs for years, and it was the same thing. It was the fair sickness, and then there's con crud, which is like a fair except for in an air conditioned environment, but it's still just different flavors of nerdity. And there's always some bug that gets circulated around, no matter what, because you got a lot of people coming from a lot of different places, and they're all shoulder to shoulder.
Half of them don't bathe. Like they've actually started putting signs up that say, soap, use it.
And I remember like a year or two ago, there was like some big thing of like somebody got real mad about that stigma, and how it was.
The person who got mad about that stigma has never been to a convention.
Yeah, they were like, I think it is very unfair, the stigma you're putting on. Say, and here's the thing. I'm not saying that everybody, Adam, does, because everybody in this conversation does. We all go to cons, but
it's been a while. But yeah,
it's that's a stereotype for a reason, because there's a really high percentage of stinky people.
There's a scale, and it is a very large scale between the cleanest person and the uncleanest person.
I mean, you see people walk in without moving their feet. That's how dirty they are. Like stink lines rising off of them like a Charlie Brown cartoon. Like, oh, well, that's what we're dealing with today.
Yeah, and Seth, when you came to TotalCon,
I started going to cons in
that's one that Mike wasn't there, was he?
No.
Yeah.
No, unfortunately. So Mike Pondsmith has the title of the only human being I've ever gone full fanboy over. And I didn't know I could. Like, I didn't think that I had that part where you go fanboy, like some girl in the 1960s and the Beatles walk in the room sort of fanboy stuff. I've met a lot of my heroes or like big name authors, blah blah blah. And so at Gen Con, when I was at the Artel Soria table and Mike was there, it just erupted out of me. And I was there actually with a good friend of mine. She was my former publicist, who's kind of watching me in that sort of watching a train wreck way, because she's like, what the hell are you doing? And I like to imagine my eyes looking at her the whole time with, I don't know, shut me up. But he's like, I didn't know I could do this. So that is the only time in my life I've ever just gone gaga fanboy, was with Pondsmith. So I would have been great if he was a Total Con. Maybe I could have made a different impression than oh my God.
Well, he started going to TotalCon in 2013, and that's when I first gamed with him. He missed a year or two, but usually he was kind of a steady state there, because Frank Metzer would be there. Arneson, I think used to not Arneson. Who was the guy who was in charge of Dragon in the early age? Starts with a K. It's on the tip of my tongue. Anyways,
that guy.
Yeah. Another legend of the gaming system, right? So these guys would be there at TotalCon, and the first time, because I would go to TotalCon once in a while, and then I saw, special guest Mike Pondsmith. I'm like, whatever I got to do, I'll kill, beat, bribe, assassinate, whatever I need to do to get there and get in his game. That's what I'm doing. But yeah, I was kind of like that first experience with him. And of course, at the game, he's running Cyberpunk 2020, and I'm like, that's not how the rule is written, Mike. But I never said that. Because you don't tell the guy who wrote the game, like, oh yeah, by the way, I don't think you remember it right. But of course, everyone else at the table didn't play Cyberpunk and didn't know who Mike was, and they're like, "Oh, you ran this? You created this game? Oh, this is a pretty good game." Meanwhile, I'm sitting there gushing over him.
Yeah, are you planning on publishing it?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, he demoed Red a couple times there. His son Cody did a lot of play testing for Witcher at TotalCon, and hopefully, once cons get back, I'm hoping he'll make an appearance again. So, just an FYI.
That's another one that I want to go back to. But yeah, so they contacted me, and I went up there, and it was fun. And then my friend Melanie, who is my former publicist when I was at Ragnarok, and she's one of my close friends now. She lives right by there, and she had no idea about TotalCon. Because I contacted her and say, hey, I'm going to be like in your area in a couple months. And she's like, what's it called? It's called Total Confusion. And it's in Marlboro. And she's like, yeah, that's like 2 miles from me. But what are you talking about? Like, well, it's definitely a big deal. And she's, she was the one that was in charge of the Gen Con Writers Symposium. So it's like she's actually really deep in that community and had no idea that con was like going on just a couple miles from her house.
It's the biggest role-playing con.
I got to hang out with her there.
So when you were...
She was like, wait, what? Like, yeah, it's been going on for years.
Yeah. So when you were there, did you hit the scene to make sure you hit all the Lovecraftian spots? Or didn't have time?
Not on that trip, but on things like that, that's like a work event for me. So like when I go to conventions as a guest, and there I was a guest of honor, so it's like, oh, this is going to be more so. I am, pretty much there the whole time, unless I'm like going to go grab a bite to eat. I won't even like drink. Because it's like, well, I've got panels I got to do. I got to do this. I've got to like represent, them. They invited me here and all this. So that to me was like a very big work weekend. And that also can be exhausting because you have to be on the whole time. And like you have to be conscious that your resting bitch face doesn't pop up because somebody might want to walk up and say hi at the moment that, you kind of relax your face. And it's like, well, he looks really pissed. I don't want to approach him. So like the whole time I'm like
I
walking
wait
around.
for those exact moments to approach people.
Yeah. So I was like, remember to, don't do your resting bitch face, Seth. Look nice, look approachable. Cause otherwise like I'd look like I was brooding. So they're usually pretty tiring. I did get to go up in that area for the very first time, only a few months before TotalCon. And then I did do my kind of tour of up along the Massachusetts coast through kind of the little sites from Lovecraft Country, but that was just Newburyport, Ipswich, and Rockport, and all those little things which you've all had games in. Stand on the beach where Innsmouth would be, except it was raining and it was October and it was freaking cold. So my wife got a picture of me like standing on the beach in the rain, grinning, and through my teeth I'm like, just take the picture, freezing. And there's like this like beastly huge because it's puffed up because it's called like a seagull sitting next to me. It's like you
Welcome
look
to New
uncomfortable,
England,
sir, but it's like the size of a schnauzer. What the hell is this giant bird? Like, we don't have seagulls that big. Our seagulls are teeny and scrawny and just they look like meth addicts, but up there they're huge. Yeah. Some meat on them.
A lot of dead fish around, especially on the coast. Yeah, so just an FYI to you, because I know you've expressed interest in it. Supposedly Necromonicon is going to be next year. That is, to me, definitely a place. If you're a Cthulhu fan, you should definitely check out. It's not just the game; it's also the whole genre, and a lot of artist panels and fun stuff like that. So,
So in 2022,
conventions.
yeah,
and I'm so happy they originally set this for 2022, so it's got a couple years lead time. And actually, they start promoting it to make sure they there's a con going on in Romania called Eldritch Con, and I am coming as a guest. And,
Oh my God!
so the Eldritch Con, and this is the other, like when they gave me their pitch, it was just like shut up and tell me where to sign. So how this one works is it's in Romania, but if you sign up for their super platinum package, the platinum package is you start in Paris and then you board the Orient Express.
no
and
shit.
then you ride the Orient Express to Romania, and while you're on the train, we're going to do some sort of event. I don't even know what it is, but I think the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society is putting it together. So I don't know if it's like some sort of murder mystery mythos dinner
That's what I
theater
was thinking.
or what. But riding the Orient Express has been on like the bucket list of dream vacations that my wife and I have. So I told her, it's like, so I got this offer. She's like, you said yes, right? Like, well, I just wanted to get your opinion. You said yes, right? so that will be my 2022.
You said yes, right?
Holy cow, man!
And
Now you're about to make
and
me
I'll
spend
be,
money.
Most amazing trip imaginable.
and that's like, so on the train is like Mike Mason with Chaosium, who was in charge of the Call of Cthulhu line, Sandy Peterson, who created Call of Cthulhu, but also in the video game industry gave us Doom and Quake and Age of Empires and all that. So he'll be on the train with us. And a couple other personalities in the Call of Cthulhu gaming community, like Oscar Rios, and then the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society. We're all going to be riding this train. So it's like, oh, son of a bitch, that's our 2022 big event. So gonna pitch that is I'll probably be missing Necronomicon.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man.
Yeah, I would. Yeah,
that's the riding the Orient Express has been a dream for years. So I will have to be getting a hold of a tux. I don't know if I'm required to wear one, but I'm going to wear one anyway because, damn it, I'm not going to get that opportunity again.
Agreed. And
okay,
the price tag is a
your
little
travels.
steep.
I've followed you on Facebook. I've followed you on Facebook for like a decade now, and in that time, you've posted some pictures of yourself on your travels, and it seems like, I could be wrong, but it's always seemed to me like maybe you do a little like cosplay tourism. Like I see you, none of the costumes seem specific about anything, but every time I see you like in front of a mountain or some shit, you're like dressed like you came out of an Indiana Jones movie or something.
Okay, so there were a couple, a few as in 9 years ago, we did Carnival in Venice. So we went to Venice, we got an apartment, and we went to these masquerade balls. So there were pictures of me in Venice in full masquerade ball attire because, damn it, I'm at Carnival, and that's what you do. That was a big dream vacation. And then a couple years ago, I went to Petra in Jordan. And I wasn't actually dressed like Indiana Jones. I was wearing a wide-brimmed hat that was kind of in the fedora cut, but also had the kind of a green vented top, to let the heat out. But why am I wearing it? For the same reason he did. It keeps the sun off of me. I am descended from cave people, man. I have absolutely no. I I can burn in under a minute and a half. I mean, I have no resistance versus the sun, and I'm in the freaking desert. So I've got a wide-brimmed hat on to keep me from dying.
I was just weirded out because, like, man, you look like the funnest person in the world to travel with. Like, oh, everywhere he goes, he's looking styling.
But then I've got one of the shirts that it's very lightweight, but it's long sleeve to keep the sun off you. But then you can roll it up in the tabs, which it's the modern version of what the old Indiana Jones shirt was like.
Yeah.
It's just, the modern version, because really that's what you wear. And then I'm wearing my boots because it's the desert.
That's what you
and
do.
That's what you wear. So like when I posted pictures of that, they're like, "Why are you dressed like Indiana Jones?" Like, well, it's just what you wear. It's like, it keeps the sun off me. It keeps me cool. But I'm also wearing a camelback because I'm in that desert. But yeah, if I have an opportunity to dress up for an event, that is something I will do because it's fun. So like I said, we did Ren fairs for a long time and different events. So yeah, if I've got an excuse to wear a costume, damn it, I will, because
you're styling like that.
Well, we've always liked costume parties. So we'll often have theme parties that we'll do just because it's fun. Sometimes they're lame themes, and that's part of the fun, is the fact we chose a lame theme. And other times they're serious. But that's our thing.
Okay. So, to clarify, yes, you are one of those fun people to travel.
Yes, I am. Okay, fine, you can't.
Okay. There we go.
Fine, busted. Are you happy now?
Yeah. Just so I can fully imagine your trip to Romania coming up. Yeah, you're going to be, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's going to definitely be I'm going to have to buy some really cool clothes for this because
I'm going to say, have you picked out a costume yet? Because that's something you need to plan for in advance.
Well, we did so our 40th birthday, we did a 1920s Eldritch Call of Cthulhu theme, and I got a tux for it, and I had to rent a tux, but I was like, I want an older style, and they're like, this was like tails. I need tails. I need an old style, and I wear this big gold medallion, and we rented a speakeasy bar in Denton, Texas, because it had to be in a speakeasy, and we made our friends all dress in 1920s attire, and it was absolutely wonderful. So I will do it. I have no problems doing it.
So you can also get a cape as well, and maybe a top hat.
Yeah, it's.
I don't know. Top hats, I've never really seen the point. You don't have much of a brim to keep the rain off or the sun off. It's just kind of like, I don't know, wearing a big tube on your head. I will probably do the classic fedora or something, though it's the Orient Express, so maybe a fez. I'm not sure. I haven't really thought about it too much yet.
Yeah. Maybe throw an opera cloak in there. Something with some sleeves.
But
white gloves and all that.
oh yeah, no, you gotta have the white gloves. So, and then I'll binge a ton of old Agatha Christie movies and stuff before I go, because research.
Who knows? Maybe that'll be your new
anyways,
novel.
Total Con or Eldritch Con.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to write a good mystery novel. I don't know if that is in my skill set. Just because I'm always like, I could do that, and then I really start thinking about them. It's like, I don't know if I could really do that well. But I could probably set something modern day on a train like that. But there'd probably be a monster jumps out and they shoot it. So
There's got to be some violence somewhere.
yeah.
Cool.
I miss going to cons. I miss being able to afford to go to cons. But I grew up in the '80s. and the 90s going to the Kansas City conventions. And then I hit Chicago like 5 years in a row for their big, before Wizard took it over and it became Wizard Con, there was just a big Chicago Comic Con. And, yeah, when I moved to Arkansas, I would try and make the little cons around here. And sometimes I would go back to Kansas City, but man, since the surgery, I haven't been able to, it's been 8 years since I've been to any kind of con. I was hoping to go back to Kansas City this last year, but then COVID hit, killed everything, all the plans.
Yeah, pretty much. I felt like I had just this long pause or long holding pattern. Like, I think 2 weeks, I'm finally going to get a chance to game in the same room with my friends again.
We just started that like a month ago.
So, the room that I film in is my game room, and where I sit is just where I sit when I run a game. Then when I show the people around the table, they're sitting around the table. Like it's
set, yeah.
It's like, is it like a set piece? Like, no, this is quite literally where I sit in the same chair. But the past year, it's become like studio / junk room / my wife's home office. And so like, you're like, guys, I can't wait for you to come game with me, because it'll finally give us an excuse to finally clean this damn room, because it's actually got so much crap in it. And when I film, depending on like if I'm filming like the Todd character or me just sitting, the opposite side of the room from me is absolute chaos. It's like, okay, well now I need to flip the camera around and set up a GM screen and act like I'm talking to somebody that's not there. Well, first thing I need to do is spend the next 5 minutes pushing half a ton worth of crap back to the other side of the room because it just keeps shifting. So I'm really looking forward to like being forced to purge just that accumulated clutter, just to have room for my friends again. Yeah, past year I felt like it's just been this bizarre holding pattern of I had friends that we'd hug each other and say, "Hey man, I'll see you in a couple weeks," and it's now been a year and I haven't seen them since. So we're finally getting plans to like get around to that movie we were going to watch the next time we hung out 18 months ago. So,
yeah, my basement.
My friends and I were watching Doom Patrol. We've been stuck in episode 3 for over a year now.
Yeah, my basement. I have we used to play BattleTech with a couple of my buddies, and right now in my basement there's a battle that's half fought that's still on the table because I don't go down in the basement otherwise. So that battle, it's gonna be like, okay, let's start a new one. But yeah, it's kind of,
oh man,
this year is weird.
You don't tell me you want to start a new one. You act dead serious of, God damn it, we're finishing this. And if I don't remember where they are, you act so offended if somehow they don't remember exactly what was going on in the battle.
Steve, it's your turn, fucker.
You hold on to that as long as you can so you finally crack. Like, no, I don't remember either. Let's start over.
Dude, on the plus side, you don't have to add dust as a special effect. It's already there.
A volcano erupted off table and spread ash across the table. But yeah, it's been an interesting year in that how all gaming has changed in a way. I mean, it's definitely thrown visual tabletops into the limelight.
Oh yeah, and I had resisted those tooth and nail because old dog new tricks, yada yada yada, and then it became this kind of necessity, if you wanted to do it. But then I ended up, because there were so many, since everyone was trapped, I ended up doing a lot of like little one-shot games with different people from around the country that would like, I reach out, I was like, hey, do you want to be at our game? Like, yeah, sure. So I got to play like Aliens with a group of people and some other games with different people online, which is nice now that I'm more comfortable with how do we do this? What do we do? I hate the fact that, you're on a single channel, only one person can talk at a time. So that cuts down on all the little experience of playing with your friends. If, those little side talks and the energy in the room, like that's all gone. When we play in person, an 8 or a 10 hour game is like normal for us. Like it is an all day event. But online, man, once you hit about 6 hours, we're beginning to like drop out because we don't have that energy of being in the room with each other that just keeps us going and it keeps us excited. So a lot of people are like, oh yeah, it's just like being in the room with people. Like, no, it's not. No,
it's not.
It's it is better than nothing, but it is.
Yeah.
It's not like, I do like that I can drop down like really cool maps that have got all this detail and stuff that I can't lay on you in front of you. What you guys get is either I hand you a picture off of my crappy printer, or I draw it out really clumsily on the plexiglass board, and it's like, hey, it kind of looks like that, but the lines are straight, and imagine a lot more colors and a lot more detail. You just kind of get an odd rectangle and just picture that's what the room looks like. And we liked it. And so
and I think
I'm looking forward to it. I'm happy I now can table like virtual, but man, I can't wait to not have to.
And I think the other issue with virtual, at least from my point of view,
I enjoy the virtual games that I've been running, but
the virtual games, and again, perfect example is the talking over some people. That, hey, someone starts up, well, I'm going to do that, and you have like 5 people all at once just trying to cram in. And it's like, oh no, you go. Oh no, you go. Versus everyone sitting at a table, you have that body language of
fast.
Quickly, oh, he's about to talk, I'll step back and let him finish his comment, right? Which I don't think you get an individual.
Also, like, if the GM's talking to a player and it's like, we're going shopping or whatever, and it's just me and the player talking, we're going through some interaction, I can then have 2 other players that kind of sit next to each other, and they can work at something, and they can be kind of whispering something back and forth, like, oh, hey, this is where you find the description to this power ability or spell. And they're kind of helping each other. They're doing some sort of paperwork, or they're planning for once I can get back around to them. They're involved in the game, but they're not involved in the scene. They're quietly kind of doing whatever it is they need to do. Online, they're like, well, why don't you open up other chat channels? Like, that's not the same. Like,
it's not. It's never gonna be the same.
And so it's better than nothing. It has allowed me to play with people on other parts of the world, where we have to like do time zones because they're in the UK and I'm in Texas. And to them it's like, oh, it's getting late. And it's like, oh yeah, it's getting about 3 in the afternoon here. So that's like midnight for you. So and that's an amazing thing. That's just simply incredible that we have that. But if it comes to playing with my buddies that I've been playing with for 2 decades, damn it, I want to be in the room. I want to like have Dorito fingers.
Yeah, I want to be sharing some drinks. I want to, step outside and smoke something, come back in and just watch the chaos unfold.
Just be a
I want to tell
buddies.
Yeah, I want while the GM's doing something, I want to be telling dirty jokes on the side. It doesn't work in an online capacity the same. That's not to say I don't love my online games, but I do. I'm playing. I'm running 2 right now, and I'm playing in a 3rd, sometimes a 4th. But the game sessions never tend to go more than 4 hours, due to the international dating thing you were talking about, where they're on the other side of the world. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning for them. They're not staying awake any longer.
Yeah.
Plus, Derek,
But yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. It's been all I've been able to play for like a year. Go ahead, Will.
The pictures you've shown of like I think the 2 instances of your game rooms with all the neon lights and the game table
I
you
miss my
have.
game room so much.
I was like, wow, why can't I live near him?
Yeah. Well, if you lived near me now, you'd be very disappointed. I'm just in a little 2-bedroom crap apartment with my brother. Yeah, I miss my game room quite a bit. But the people I game with, they've got their own game room, and that's more Dungeons and Dragons related, but it's still cool.
As long as it's kind of that geek lair.
Oh my God, it's a geek lair.
You know, mine's
is
a
one
assortment of crap. So
the guy whose house I game with, he's so into Dungeons and Dragons that he's owned original Elmores.
Really?
Just to throw that out as an example. So yeah, his game room is, when I say D&D acquitted, it is D&D acquitted.
I would be more impressed if it was
if I had
Parkinson.
an opportunity to get an original Parkinson, I would. Oh my God, yeah.
He's got some of those too.
Jeez.
Yeah, I've got some of my like Glyke prints of his, but yeah, if I had an opportunity for original Parkinson, I would definitely. Oh my God. I found really interesting with some of the conventions of, you know, certain personalities in the industry are treated as massive celebrities while others aren't. I mean, like, for example, I went full fanboy when I got to meet Mike Pondsmith.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there's other people who have a line or people following him around and professing their love and how influential massive changes they made in their life, and that's amazing. But meanwhile, Steve Jackson's just kind of walking around almost anonymously. And if you don't know what he looks like, you wouldn't notice that there's Steve Jackson just strolling around and nobody notices. Of like, you guys,
a lot of these guys, I mean, you don't know what they look like. They don't put their picture out there much. So Steve Jackson can just be walking around, and unless he's at his booth, he's not going to get mobbed. But like if you go to a comic book convention, like you'll see professionals. Like if you know what to look for, you'll see them walking around, and nobody's bugging them. But the second they sit down at their booth, there's like a mile-long line going out the building and around the block.
Sometimes, but so at Gen Con 2020, which was my first Gen Con, Larry Elmore had a couple people around his table, but then you'd see other others that had much larger crowds around. Say, that's Larry fucking Elmore. This guy illustrated our childhood. Like, it's like this is probably one of the most influential people in the room because he let us see all of this fantastical stuff. And he isn't drawing a bigger crowd than the other tables that might just have cool looking dice at them. Yeah, say, guys, one of the gods from Olympus is just sitting right there behind a folding table.
He's just hanging out.
Pay tribute, damn it. So yeah, I found that really interesting because at that convention, I had a signing event, and a lot of people came to me with Call of Cthulhu books because I got them into the game. And I ended up, I'd opened the book, and it's like, guys, I didn't write this. I mean, like, but I want you to sign it. It's like, okay. But I open it up, and it's blank on the inside cover. It's like, okay, I'll do this, but only under these conditions. And they say, what? It's like, if you go 4 booths down, you'll see Peterson Games. Over there is an older gentleman who's bald and has a beard. His name is Sandy Peterson. Here's his name on the cover of this book. Get him to sign it. And if you go over, to the kiosk table over there, there's Paul Fricker. His name is the next name on the cover of this book. So I gave them directions to where to find the people that wrote the book, even though they came to me as the person that wanted to sign it. And they all agreed because I think they didn't know that those people were like in the same room with us. Yeah, I thought beautiful. Like, these people are sitting there and nobody notices them. But the Larry Elmore one like freaked me out because it's like, how does he not have a line that wraps the freaking room? Because it's Larry fucking Elmore.
Larry fucking Elmore. Yeah.
It's like I like also terribly nice guy, but these people that we've never met that are so ridiculously influential.
Yeah, it was what the quartet was easily Elmore, Parkinson, and Caldwell. I think were the 4 guys who were basically the stable artists for TSR throughout the 80s.
Oh yeah.
I actually watched a documentary on the whole art of D&D, and to me it was just like fascinating to see the evolution of, hey, these are the original guys, and then you have all these other crazy guys like Brahm. Brahm I also loved.
Brahm was fucking incredible. Dark Sun.
Brahms is on next level.
Like when I remember when Dark Sun came out and it was all that Brahm art, it was like, I don't know what this game is, but I am going to play this game because this is the most insanely cool looking shit I've ever seen.
I wish he did the Nomads book for Talsorian. That would have taken it above and beyond.
His style is great.
I liked 90% of the art. Like, I really loved 90% of the art for Neo Tribes. So I'm not going to say that I wish anybody else did it. But I would have liked to have seen him do a different book for Nomads or Cyberpunk. I will say that.
I will say that with Cyberpunk Red, one thing that does disappoint me is because it's now full color. I guess the art costs a lot more to make full color art, for logical reasons.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it has as much art as the old book did, where you don't have like basic gear and equipment doesn't have pictures, just basic gear and equipment. There's not that many pictures of the firearms. They're
one of the commenters. Earlier, I meant to bring it up earlier, but we were having problems. But one of the commenters actually wanted to get your opinion on the lack of like gun and gear porn in the game.
It has been noticed by me. I will hold back many opinions till reviews, but there is a serious lack. And in the old 2020 book, like when you just look at the basic gear, like there's still little pictures of it.
Yeah.
You have little pieces like, this is a cell phone that folds, which at the time was mind blowing. Like, a cell phone that folds? Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, it was like 10 years before Nokia, man.
Like, what is this amazing future you talk of? But of just basic gear. Like, sometimes I just want to see what in the hell does this, what the hell does this type of armor look like? What the hell does this pistol look like? Or just what the hell does a cyber deck look like? We've got AVs. What the fuck does an AV look like? It doesn't have to be the greatest picture, but sometimes
it needs to have some kind of representation.
And I feel like the Red Book lacks a lot of the art that establishes what certain things just look like, and that does bother me because, you know, and a lot of it, like, you know, one of the things I always have to remember is a lot of the stuff that I know about Cyberpunk came from then the Chrome books and from Black Hand Street Guides and all the expansion books. You know, so I have to keep my focus limited to core book versus core book because it's not fair to use the expansions in my comparison. That's just not a fair comparison until Red gets the expansion books, and then I can compare them to each other. But you know, there was still pictures of like a Monogatana, several of the firearms, different stuff like that I don't have. Like, I think there's like 3 pictures of guns in the whole thing, but they're not the same as, what is that gun? I want that gun. Then you go to the price list.
Yeah.
Like, I want that one. It also does bother me that the way they kind of broke down a lot of the branding of the weapons seems so much like an afterthought. In Cyberpunk 2020, if, let's say, I wanted a medium auto pistol, they're all listed right there. So you go to it, and you're like, okay, my character's got $300 left to arm himself, so what can we get? And you go through it, it's like, okay, well, let's start with the budget arms, and then kind of work your way up, and you're like, oh, well, the this one's too expensive. Let's kind of go down. So you had to go through multiple ones, and they were brands. It wasn't just medium auto pistol. There was like 4, and they were different brands, and they held a different amount than each other, or you had varying
They each
quality.
had their own style.
But they all had their own name. Well, in the current one, there's like a chart that's on some kind of random page near the back where it starts talking about the quality and the different brands.
Yep.
But they're so buried in there, when before that was just how it was presented. It wasn't medium auto pistol. It was these brands, and those are the medium auto pistols.
Yeah, you refer to the gun itself, not its status.
You know, my friends I used to play with back in like 2002. Their little group was called the Sternmeyer 35s because they all carried Sternmeyer 35s, and that was just, you know, part of like the different brands were brought into it. Well, now it's like if you get your equipment, it's like, oh, you get a standard auto pistol, and it's like a medium auto pistol or whatever, and that's it. It's a medium auto pistol.
So generic.
And
Yeah.
if you want to bring in the polymer one-shots, you actually have to degrade the standard that it starts off with. It's like,
Yeah.
nobody steps down. People step up. People will step it up to get the budget arms or get the Militech or get one of the quality brands, but you're never going to step down and get the poly one-shot piece of crap. Well, before, they were all just presented side by side, like you went to a store, and the guy's like, look at my case. This is what I have.
Exactly.
On this side are just these Saturday night specials that might take your hand off, but they're for the conscious
super
purchaser.
cheap.
And then over here are the super tricked out custom jobs that are always one of a kind, made for you at the Malorian Arms Factory, which, you know, all our groups are always like, that's the goal, is you go to the Malorian Arms Shop in Night City, and they will 3D
It's
print
super pro stuff.
Yeah, like they'll make it right there to you for specs, and that stuff is very afterthoughty, and that is actually the part that really I'm having the biggest hang up on.
Yeah, and
as a lot of the style
our review
isn't there.
Yeah,
and I'm hoping the Chromebooks fix that, but
yeah, that's one of the things that, you know, definitely got me from an old school person, and me and Derek, like we said, we have 2 episodes of the review. I think a total of like 4+ hours of us reviewing, not only just reviewing the game, but also doing the comparison. And the one thing that I just hate is the economy and the gear, because one part of the game, right, is not only do you get skills, and of course skills take a while to level, at least in 2020 they were, but the main thing you got was gear cyberware, gear weapons. That's how your character improved. You didn't improve by levels. You didn't improve by, gaining feats or other game mechanics that other games have. And the game, of course, they improved the skill acquisition a little better and growing your skills. But the other point of the game for reward is gear. And you just limited all of it. You didn't take any of the wealth that you had prior of sources and pull that into the system. Instead, you decided, okay, we're going to streamline everything. From the combat system to a lot of the game to make playability go quicker. Fine, I agree with that. But to rob you of the multiple of choices you have didn't seem right. And it's streamlined, kind of like 5th edition. I'm like, well, 5th edition, you have an axe, you have a sword, you have all these other weapons that are all unique. And they didn't decide, from
I always compared it to...
Go ahead.
Well, I said because I've done this. I know this conversation because my wife and I have had it because she's been playing Cyberpunk with me this whole time. So in D&D, it's like a sword's a sword's a sword. It's like in D&D, there's a rapier and a falchion and a scimitar, a short sword, a long sword, a broadsword, a bastard sword, a two-hander. Yeah, all this and now, Cyberpunk, which used to have all the brands, now it's like heavy auto pistol. And we're done. It's like, and what she loved about it, and what really got us into a lot of the cyberpunk thing was the style. Like we had brands, your character goes out and you buy a jacket by Cryomax. I know so much about made up companies because the brands were actually important to us. Is that a Raven brand cyber thing? Is that a Kuroshi Eyes? Those were a thing. In Red, when you go through the cyber section, one thing that actually does kind of that really struck out to me, there really aren't pictures of a cyber arm. The arm. What the fuck does the arm look like? 2020. Yeah. I had a black and white. It was done in kind of a Patrick Nagel style, but it kind of showed how the articulations of an arm work. And then there were pictures that have movement of a guy like smashing a dude's head into a wall, and I could look at how that arm was built and kind of articulated. And in this one, I feel like a lot of just the what does this stuff look like is missing, as such as what the hell does a cyber deck look like and all that. So and the art is beautiful. I just feel like there are certain things I want to have the feeling of brands, because to me that was also cyberpunk was brands. It is we have hit the point of capitalism to a hyper crazed level. So it shouldn't just be I want the biggest gun. Is I want this brand gun. That should mean something. And they do talk about do you have Urban Flash or do you have this style? But all of those brands that made that, they don't talk about. And I would love more pictures of what does Urban Flash look like? Like, you remember?
I mean, for me, it's like gear catalogs are the thing. Like they're one of the major draws of any game I play. And the more of that you can show me, the more of the world you can show me, the more I'm going to be invested in that. I mean, obviously, when it comes to gear porn and all that, I'm a fan of it. Anybody who's been to the site can testify. Like, there's a lot of gear porn on my site, just a lot of it.
Oh no, and like Chromebooks to me were like when I really fell in love with cyberpunk.
Yeah, exactly.
As you
gave me the same feeling I had as a kid when I'd pick up the Sears catalog. Like, oh my God, I want this for my character. I can design an entire character just based off this one little piece of gear. I've already got his personality mapped out and all that.
And to me, a lot of that was that the style, and in a lot of my reviews, I've talked about Cyberpunk as a game about style. Style is massively important to just to the world, and I feel that it's lost. But I also know that I have a bias because when I think of 2020, I instinctively lump in 4 Chromebooks, 2 Solos of Fortunes, Blackhand Street Weapons. Those are all just kind of lumped into my impression of that game, which is a large amount of stuff. So I have to like kind of limit myself of core book versus core book because I know they're working on some Chromebook coming out.
Yeah,
but I still feel like the
Chrome
art,
Black.
Yeah, something like Black Chrome Black.
Yep.
I still feel like the art and the branding in the core book does disappoint me, and there are a lot of changes to rules. Some of them I love, some of them I'm like, we'll see. They fixed net running. I'll never say that bad about it. They fixed freaking net running.
It is so much improved from
the old
from 2020. It's almost unrecognizable. Well, it is because 2020's net running was pretty much unplayable.
Yeah, and we would try it. It was like this has to work. We must be doing something wrong because let's figure this thing out. And then when we finally got it to work, we were like, we did it. We got it to work. Now let's never do this again.
Yeah, I mean most GMs I know who ran Cyberpunk in the 80s or in the 90s were like, we just relegate that to NPC status. And then Brainware Blowout came out and they gave you rules to use the Netrunner card game in place of net running rules, and we did that for a long time. That was fun.
My first app on my site,
but most people couldn't afford those cards.
My first app on my site was basically the creation of the net running navigator, right? Just to get that whole thing out of the way for my net runners. And then, I created some simplified rules to just, hey, let's do some rolls, see what you get, right? And yeah, everyone homebrewed the stuff, but I didn't mind. It all depended, right, on my players had to know how to do net running, period. If you want to play this, that's fine. Either we play this, outside this game, and you need to know the rules, because I don't want to stop and have you, let me look this up. No. You know the rules, I'll know the rules, and we'll fly through it. And
I had the same thing. I had my first players, like, kind of like, when they want to play a net runner, it's like, okay, I'll let you play a net runner. The cost is you're going to learn how to be a net runner. Like you have to learn these rules. I will learn them with you because I need to learn them too, but I will not learn them for you.
Yep.
Because trust me,
amen to that.
I don't want to do this. I'll do it for you, but if you're going to make me do it, God damn it, you're doing it too. And it would work if you could both fumble through it together and learn it, but if only one of you knew it and the other one didn't, it just sucked.
Yeah.
NPC actors.
Yeah. It was a different game. No matter how you played net running in 2020, it was like which set of official rules you used. It was always a different game entirely than what everybody else was playing.
Yep.
Yeah, and with Red, the fact that they made it where pretty much the character has to be with you. Like, okay, that solves the other thing of Tom Cruise is hanging from the ceiling and Ving Rhames is out in the truck outside. Like, no, now they're there together and now they're having their adventure at the same time. Versus you're doing the thing and your net runner is like 80 miles away in a cheap motel somewhere, totally safe, unless their brain gets cooked. I do prefer all of that. I love so much of the streamlining. But I will say a lot of the art and the branding of the new one doesn't sit perfect with me.
I'm with you on the branding, and I'm with you on the lack of art for items. But I will say that, I'll die on the hill that the art in 2020 or the art in Cyberpunk Red is just phenomenal. To finally have a book that's got full color, like just gorgeous art. None of it Like it's all top quality art. It's
quality is outstanding.
yeah.
I just
You're not
sometimes
gonna
want a
flip to a
picture of-
page. What the fuck is that? How did that get in the book?
I just sometimes want a picture of like what the hell the basic item looks like, but the art's gorgeous.
Agreed, 100%.
I love a lot about it, and some of it is part of why I'm like I want to play a lot of it. Is I don't want my review to be like old man yells at clouds of just saying where it's not just like the old one was back in the day, because there's part of the if they change something, what did we get for anything we lost? What did we get in return, and was that worth it? There's certain areas I feel like the pendulum of let's streamline this for ease of play swung too far. Others I think it hit perfect. So
Yep.
we'll see. It's going to have to go through a lot more of the gauntlet of running.
Yeah, when we did our review with, I talked with Will, and like I did not want to come across as the old man just complaining about everything. Like that was almost word for word how that argument went down. But yeah, I did not want to be stuck just bitching when there was so much. There is a lot of good stuff, but in the end, I am that old man. I am yelling at those clouds, and I am who I am, and that's all that I am.
And
you know, it's like anyone's been gaming long enough and had to deal with an edition change, they've been there. So, and I said when I do my review of it, I'm going to have to do two. I'm going to have to do this is the system by itself, in case you've never played the old one. Then me just talking about how it used to be once does you no good. And then I'm probably going to have one that's just titled "Old Man Yells at Clouds."
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's hard for us, right?
Shake
I
your
mean,
fist at the sky.
all of us combined is at least 20 plus years of playing this game that we, learned to love and enjoy, and went into all the nooks and crannies of the game to just enjoy this,
I mean,
and then have it
much
shift.
more than that.
Yeah, well, some of us, yes, some of us, yeah, well, again, but I think...
Well, I mean, you and I ourselves have been gaming longer than that individually.
Right. And I think from any, and there is one edition of Cyberpunk that we will not name, that is not often talked about. So for me,
I actually completely forgot about it. When I did my review of 2020, people are like, you notice he doesn't mention V3. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot V3 even existed. Like, it's just gone.
So compared to other editions, this isn't that bad of a child, right? Of the next generation of game. So yeah, I think us who learned...
No, it's a good game.
And I also see, going through Discord and various Facebooks, there is that one segment who loves playing Red, and then there's people who start playing Red, and then, let me check out Cyberpunk 2020 because it's still available, right? You can still buy it. You can, if you even buy 2777,
and there's so much more,
get a free copy of it. Yeah. And people are looking into that and being like, oh, wow, these rules are a little more complicated, and some of them I like, But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what supplements come out and how the game evolves.
And I hope some of those supplements do bring back a lot more of the brands and the really getting into those aspects of it. Because I'll tell you one thing I do not miss is I do not miss hitting somebody with an automatic weapon, and then we have to go through each goddamn bullet. I'm so happy to not have to deal with that. In theory, it's like, oh, that is so cool until you start doing it. And it's like, this is really taking a long damn time. So it'd be like, roll all the hit locations. Were any of them heads? Yeah. Okay, let's just start with the heads. Okay, you took them out. Just move on. Like, well, don't you want to know what my other dozen shots did to them? Don't give a shit. Next character. Like, just let's keep trucking. So I do like a lot of that stuff was done to speed it up, because some of the stuff they changed is like, I liked the old way, and then the thing is like, I like the old way in theory. I didn't like it as much in practice. I understand why we don't have to do system shock saves every single time anymore, because in theory I thought that was great. In practice, okay, yeah, it did kind of drag stuff. We had moments it was awesome, but on the overall, okay, cool, we got rid of it. I don't mind. I don't like the cover rules right now. I will say that is actually one source of eye twitchy. Drives me.
That's what I said. Twitchy.
Just crazy flames on the side of my face, sort of.
What do you mean I can't have partial cover? What are you talking about?
Okay, let me explain. I got the rules for shooting someone in the head. What the minuses are. I got the rules for shooting someone in the hand, get someone in the arm. It is said outright that all shots are, unless stated otherwise, then are mass. Okay. But I can use a human shield, and that covers my whole body. Yeah, I've never seen that in real life. But I have played a lot of paintball, and there is a reason in paintball why most of your shots are headshots, because that's all that's sticking up out of the damn bunker. But I'm behind cover. So if you said like cover is really covering the chest, and if you want to hit something that isn't behind cover, you have to call shot it. Such as they're behind partial cover, as in that concrete wall, but they got one head and one hand up because they're shooting back at you. If you'd like to hit them back, you gotta call shot the freaking head. We've already got the rules right there. They wrote out the rules. Why don't they just say?
I'm just in red. I'm just
partial cover is you gotta call shot.
And throw it over my head anytime I get in a fight. Like cover my head and torso. There's 100% cover.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's a towel.
Here's my theory on this whole thing, right?
So
is that Cyberpunk Red, it's just digital. So either the bit is off or the bit is on. Whereas Cyberpunk 2020 was analog, so you had a bunch of gray area that you could use. I don't know if that's their thinking, but that's kind of close to the whole thing. It's either you're full cover or you have cover or you don't.
But the problem is, one of the reasons I always praise Cyberpunk is it encouraged you get cover, you at least get partial cover, you get prone, you do something, you don't just stand there and let somebody try to kill you. If you stand there, you are going to die, and if you pout about it, everyone in the room is going to go, well, why the hell did you just stand there? And they'll be like, well, I didn't want to have a minus. Like, well, you didn't want to have a minus. In return, you got killed.
Your minus head.
Because you stood like an idiot in the middle of the room in the middle of a machine gun fight. So the idea of you either have cover, you don't, and all that, actually, to me, works against that. And the workaround really would have been, if you're behind cover, you either have to shoot through the cover or you got to call shot them.
Yep.
Because you can, I have shot at least paintball guns at people from behind cover many times, and it's not like I'm completely out, but they can still hit me. It's just what they can hit gets a lot smaller. They already have the rules for call shotting a head and an arm.
Yep.
So the fact that they did it that way seems really strange, and so that is my actual first thing when I started reading it of like rules. I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. And the more I think about that, the less I like that.
Yeah, I think we're all in. I think we've reached a consensus on that bit right there. Yeah. I think 2020, and we talked about this in our reviews, but I think 2020 and Red appeal to very different audiences. 2020 Interlock, it appeals to an older school of gamer who isn't afraid of something fairly rules medium to rules heavy. If that trade-off is that they get a little bit more, I hesitate to use the term realism, but I'm not really sure. Cinematic realism, I guess.
Yeah.
Whereas with Red, it appeals more to the modern gamer. They go for the simpler, faster rule sources that just let them move quickly through whatever encounter. And I guess that lets them focus on role playing, which is a plus. But I also personally, like from my personal point of view, you lose a lot of the edge that way. And the edge is what I love about Cyberpunk.
And so I guess I could agree with many of their changes. Some of them, I just feel like that pendulum swing of let's simplify this for ease of use, for approachability to new gamers. I feel like it might have swung a little bit too far in a couple spots, but a lot of them, I think they hit the nail right on the head. We'll see. I'm enjoying it. We've been having fun, which at the end of the day is the only part that actually matters.
Yeah, that's
and I've done edition wars with other games, and they do tire me because it's like, well, at the end of the day, the old game is still there. It's still in print, still available. You can still play it. The new game is going to be there. No matter how much you hate it, it's still going to be there. So let's just learn to live with it. But yeah, with various games, it was like, oh, it ruined the game. It's like it didn't ruin it. It's still right there. Even in the now that we're in the age of PDFs, hell, the old stuff's even more available now than it was 20 years ago.
Now everybody can get a hold of everything. There's no more. There's very rare. There's very little stuff that's actually rare anymore. And yeah, I mean, there hadn't been a new supplement produced for 2020 in 2 decades.
Yeah,
it's the new system is the new system, and it's where things are going to go, and it's a good system. And if you want more of the 2020 stuff, well, I'm working on that. What can I say?
Well, and listen, it's give and take. We're having fun, and I freaking love the fact that we can actually have Netrunner as a viable thing. Yeah, so there's a lot that I like, but there still is back in the day we used to have to count our bullets. So, I have to get past angry old man vibes.
You still do.
And I said, I when I see that with people like with D&D that still insist on like the old editions versus the new, it's like, oh God, don't let me ever become that person. That's a lot of the source of my I don't want to pass judgment. I have to rate it off what it is versus. Yeah.
You could probably convince me to play some basic again for a weekend or so, but I'm never ditching 5e for the earlier systems. That's just not going to happen.
Oh, I have thousands of hours in first and second edition because they were pretty good.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I know those rules so well. We knew how to
I never want to hear the word tobacco again.
And so a lot of people are like, what's your favorite edition? And I was like, here's the thing. The one that I could truly see I have absolute mastery of is the old one. But I would always recommend let's just do 5e if I have to do D&D because it's just simpler. I don't have to deal with some of this.
D&D Beyond 5e is the greatest thing on the planet.
I've never checked out D&D Beyond.
Check out D&D Beyond. It will change your life.
Well, I haven't played 5e in years. I just don't have a problem with it. Just not my thing.
I'm with the group, my live action group. Just that's what they play is Dungeons and Dragons. My Cyberpunk games have been relegated to online, I'm afraid.
Well, if one of them's gonna be online, Cyberpunk should be the one because cyberpunk.
There you go.
Yeah, I for my
Anyways, guys, I am actually about to have to hit the head like bad.
I figured we probably can end here because time, and I got to work tomorrow. So, thank you, Seth, for joining us. You're always welcome to come back and shoot the shit with us. I also like to thank Cyberpunk Uncensored for us. But go ahead, please continue.
Thanks, Rob.
For helping us through our technical issues.
Yeah.
I am just thrilled as fucking hell to finally get to chat with Derek.
Seth, I've waited so long to talk to you. It's not even funny. I am so happy I got to talk to you tonight, man. Yeah, it means a lot to me.
So no, that's like it's like earlier you're like, do you have any more time? I was like, I have waited for this for 10 fucking years. I will keep talking. So this has been an absolute treat.
Well, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, well, I hope we can we can talk again soon, pal.
Good. I do too. This was fun. As we try to like talk about it, well, not being like I like it, but old man vibes. Old man vibes.
Old man. Get off my lawn.
Get off my gaming
It's
system.
cold and there are wolves outside.
So, yeah.
Robots are coming for me.
It happens. No, yeah. But anyways, guys, I love this. I've drunk like 7 gallons of water while talking to you, so I might just explode if I don't leave soon. So, but thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
Don't make your wife clean that up. Go to the bathroom and all that.
No, she'll just give me the looks like you're cleaning that up as I'm lying on the floor bleeding. So
Yeah, we'll stop the stream. I don't know if you want to come back, Seth, and talk to us for a little bit more, or if you want to call it a night, that's fine.
Sure, we can do that. But
all right. Yep.
I gotta go, man.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you later.